Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Nika Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What if Deku had Starcraft gaming quirk? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. 4-year-old Izuku was sitting on a playground playing in the sand. He was trying to build something, but he couldn't figure out what. Every time he would build a normal sand castle, he would find it too ugly, unelegant. Suddenly, he heard a yelp from the other end of the playground. The boy turned his head over, to his best friend, Kakshin, bullying another kid, along with the two of his other friends, Tsubasa and Nagate. Something compelled Izuku to stand up and march over to them. No one noticed him when he stood right behind the trio. Izuku surprised the boy himself. It was very calm and measured, with a note of anger. "Stop it, Kakken." The boy in question turned around to look at the boy with his ruby red eyes. "Ha! Screw off Deku, I'm just showing this extra his place." Izuku's eyebrows creased in anger. "I said stop it, Katsuki Bakugu. He didn't do anything to you, did he? I know you, Kakken, you're quick to anger over the pettiest of things." The blonde scowled at Izuku, as tiny explosions began popping in his hands. "The hell did you just say, Deku? You're a quirkless loser, you've got no business judging me or anyone else." Izuku stumbled a few feet away at the blonde's heartless words and began tearing up. Is that really what you think of me, Kakken? How could you say something so cruel? I thought I was your friend." For a second, the anger in the red eyes changed into shock and shame, before turning into fury and cruelty. "You were never my friend, Deku. I'm not friends with some quirkless crybaby, a weakling, and never will be. You have been saying that you will have a quirk for the past few months, and yet there's nothing at all." For a second, Izuku was stunned, before his eyes an angry, bloody red, all of a sudden. Bakugu's own eyes went wide, the explosions in his arms stopped. He was paralyzed by the stare that Izuku was giving him, angered, furious, even. There was also something dark in that stare, and that something was unnerving little Katsuki. Then, with an angry scream, Izuku threw himself on Bakugu, and began trying to punch him, as his eyes were filled with angry tears. Katsuki had recovered his bearings by the time already though, and immediately led an explosion that blinded Izuku, and burned his face, then punched the green-haired boy in his gut. Izuku cried out in pain at the both blows, and curled on the ground, as Bakugu began kicking him. "You dash, kick, dmed dash, kick, useless dash, kick, Deku. Kick." As Bakugu tried to kick Izuku once again, a bubble of blue crystals encased him, like an egg. Katsuki looked in shock at the bubble that was protecting his former friend. He looked around, trying to find Izuku's mom, Inko. The boy knew that he would be in trouble, but he would be in even bigger trouble if he did nothing. Finally, he spotted his auntie. "Auntie Inko, Auntie Inko." The woman looked over at the dirty and scuffed boy. "Oh, Katsuki-kun, where did you dash?" "No time, Auntie Inko. Something is wrong with Izuku." He caught himself mid-word, knowing that it would bring him even more trouble. Inko immediately stood up from the bench she sat on, and rushed over at the direction Katsuki was pointing into. Safe to say, she was shocked to say the least. Inko then immediately called ambulance for her child, still inside the egg. "Well, ma'am, I must say that we have no idea what we are dealing with. Any x-rays we try to do don't show anything but the surface of the cocoon. The only way to find out what it does is to wait until it opens." Inko looked with tears at the doctor, who had an apologetic and sad frown on his face. She looked down in worry, and prayed that her son was okay. Inko spent 2 weeks in the hospital, barely drinking, eating or sleeping. Sometimes, Mitsuki, her best friend, and Katsuki's mother, would visit Inko in the hospital. She was exactly the reason that the green-haired woman was taking care of herself at least a little. Finally, on the 15th day of Inko's wait, something happened. A doctor ran inside the guest area, and pulled her up by hand. "Midoriya-san, come on, your son is coming out." The woman ran faster than All Might at that second. Every doctor she passed by sweat dropped. Soon enough, she stood inside Izuku's hospital room, watching, as the crystallic egg glowed, and began cracking. Then, it split into two, revealing her son, changed, but alive. And Inko knew that it was her son. No matter how different he looked, she just felt it. She picked her boy up, now bigger than he was by a few feet, and laid him on a hospital bed, and took a good look at him. Izuku's head now resembled the head of a squid. He had no visible mouth or nose, and his skin turned a light blue tone. Out of the back of his head, he had something akin to a ponytail, or a dread, growing out. It was a very dark green, almost bordering on black, color. Those same ponytail's dreads were growing out of the sides of his head. The boy now had 4 claws instead of 5 fingers on his heads, and 2 large toes on his legs. Instead of the stand-at, a doctor ran inside the door, panting, as he went to hold onto the door frame. Sheesh, Midoriya-san pant, are you sure you don't have a pant speed quirk or something? Inko turned around in surprise, then laughed sheepishly. I'm sorry, I get like that when I'm worried. The man finally caught his breath, and walked over to her. No worries, it is only understandable. Now, let's what we are working with. The doctor walked over to the still sleeping boy, and began cautiously moving the boy's limbs, examining his body, and trying to find out what exactly were those ponytail's dreads. Sometimes, he would write down something on his clipboard, sometimes, he would use his quirk to scan a part of the boy's body. After about 10 minutes, he finished, and covered the Izuku's body with bed sheets, to give him some modesty. Then, he looked over at Inko. Okay, so far, I see no problems with his health. His body is in good condition, albeit a bit thin, but that could be the effect of his quirk. He is 4 years old, right? Inko nodded. The doctor hummed. Good. Then, ma'am, I congratulate you. There is nothing to worry about, this is just a case of quirk awakening. I gain such cases where the children come in different states once or twice a week, so there is nothing about. Now, onto his quirk. The doctor flipped a list on his clipboard. Okay, the boy definitely has increased muscle and bone density, which suggests a major strength boost. His legs became digitigrade, meaning that he will also gain a speed boost. The dark growths on Izuku's head seem to be connected directly to his brain, so I wouldn't suggest cutting them. If you wish to shorten them, the best bet will be braiding, since they are surprisingly flexible. Their function is unknown to me, but they're not harmful, at all. His head became bigger, meaning bigger brain capacity, which may lead to increased intelligence. Izuku's skin turned blue, and he doesn't have a mouth, which means that perhaps he may feed off sunlight, especially since this hue of blue absorbs it perfectly. I believe the claws are obvious, though. The man looked up from the clipboard. This is everything I had gathered so far. Now, to wait until he dash. Suddenly, a soft groan could be heard. The doctor turned around, to see that Izuku was slowly walking up. Wakes up. Speak of the devil, eh? Inko immediately ran over to the boy. Izuku! Izuku, dear, are you okay? The boy finally opened his eyes, but they were a very bright golden color. Mom? Well, what happened? She was surprised, when she heard his voice in her head. I don't know, sweetie, Katsuki-kun ran up to me, and said that something happened to you. When I was near, you were inside a big crystal egg, so I called an ambulance. The doctor looked over at her at surprise. Midoriya-san, did your son say something to you? The woman looked over at the man in shock. Yukarishi-san, did you not hear what Izuku just said? The man shook his head, then sighed. I guess this means that he now speaks telepathically. Well, I just said that your son is fine, so might as well discharge him in a few days, we still need to do a few tests. Inko sighed this time. This was going to be a few very long days. Surprisingly, Izuku's quirk proved trickier than expected. Turns out, he had something akin to skill trees. They found out 4, and the boy instantly named them. After that, the doctors tested every form, and made a list. Izuku Midoriya has a very unique quirk, that gives him different forms, and each one has different power. One could say that it is several separate quirks, and it indeed could be mistaken for that, but the scans had shown otherwise. Here is the list of forms and powers the boy has in possession. 1. Civilian, characterized by bright golden eyes, and Izuku's normal personality, which is kind and nervous. In this skill tree, he holds little to no abilities, save for being able to convert any matter into something the boy simply labeled minerals. Before the doctors could take a sample, the blue crystals would turn into nothing, for some reason though. As said by the name, it is very suitable for a civilian. 2. Kailai, characterized by blue eyes, changes Izuku's personality into one of a very stoic and proud man, although with him still being a kid, it is quite hilarious and adorable. In this skill tree, the boy could make fast dashes, that would require a 10-second break, before they could be used again. He also seems to be able to shoot some kind of lightning out of his palms, and float, though the latter two are very weak, at the time being, or rather, untrained. This form is very fitting for a limelight hero. 3. Nerism, characterized by green eyes, changes Izuku's personality into that of a stealthy, jumpy and paranoid one. In this skill tree, he can do short-distance teleportation, that are accompanied by smoke, and can turn invisible, although he still can be detected with quirks like that of the PP Cat hero, Ragdoll. All in all, something fit for an underground hero. 4. Taldarim, characterized by red eyes, changes Izuku's personality into that of a very arrogant, aggressive, but charismatic man. Very hilarious while he is a child too, but in future, it could provide problems to the boy, so Izuku would have to learn how to control it. In this skill tree, the boy can do the lighting and floating that he can use in his Kailai form, but several times more powerful. It would seem that this skill tree's purpose is to give the wielder power to overwhelm his enemies. The boy seems to be able to switch his skill tree anytime he wants, at least, as much as the observations has shown. There may be some kind of restriction on that, emotional or otherwise, but it has yet to show. After the days of tests, the mother-son duo drove back home, and thus, began a history of a great hero. Ever since that day, Izuku has distanced himself from his former best friend. He never said what Bakugo had done back then though, which angered the blonde boy, who believed that Deku had done so out of pity for him. So, Katsuki began trying to bully Izuku even more. Our protagonist never answered his taunts though, and every time Bakugo would try to pick a fight, would simply go Nerism and disappear. Now, the both of them were at the start of their last year in middle school. Within all those years, Izuku had honed the abilities of each of his skill trees, although there is always space for improvement. The biggest growth was on his Taldarum side, unsurprisingly. Izuku learned to keep his temper in check in this form, his charisma and wit being the only qualities he'd show outwardly, even if inside he was seething. He also learned how to create a new resource, the Vespene gas. There was just one secret the boy had never shown to anyone though, not even his own mother. Right now, Izuku was inside his room, in his civilian form. In his hands, he was holding a holopad, and scrolling through the blueprints of different structures, adding a few of them onto a list of interests. Pylon, power field generator, every other structure requires it nearby to get powered, except for the Nexus. Cost, 100 minerals. Izuku already saw what a Nexus is, and boy was that thing huge. It was about half the size of Aldera High, if not bigger, so it was out of the question, at least for the time being. Mini-Terrazin Assimilator, a small station that makes an opening to the void itself, and extracts small amounts of Terrazin. Cost, 100 minerals and 100 Vespene gas. What exactly is Terrazin? After a few seconds of looking, Izuku finally found an explanation. Terrazine, a gas, very similar to Vespene, but has additional organic substances, and comes directly from the void itself. Strengthens the user's psionic abilities, but can be very dangerous in big doses, and can cause addiction. So a drag then? Well, I'll keep it in mind, as a backup plan only, though. Wouldn't want to become an addict, of all things. Izuku took a look around the building. It was still very rundown looking, but at least clean, now. Then, the boy turned his gaze over to a makeshift weapon rack. It had 3 weapons hanging on it, a giant gold and blue-colored war axe, a black and green-colored staff, and a pair of black and red-colored gauntlets. The boy sighed. I'll have to find a place to store all this stuff, sooner or later. Then, the boy's eyes fell on a tab on the holopad, named Customize and Create. Izuku smiled. Speak of the devil, huh? Let's what I can make in here. The next few hours were spent by Izuku, trying to create something akin to a hideout, and lo and behold, he did it. Secret hideout, a small structure, created strictly for dire situations, or a rough start. Has all of the most basic functions, does not require a pylon to work, generates its own power field, but it's 3 times smaller. Can be expanded, should the need arise. Build cost, 40 minerals and 10 Vespene gas. Expand cost, 8 minerals and 2 Vespene gas. Izuku's eyes were glistening with pride. Now, to find a place to create it. Soon enough, the boy stood deep inside the forest that he used to play in with Bakugo, back in the day. Those happy memories were quickly discarded by the boy though Katsuki Bakugo was no longer the same kid he used to know. Now, time to try this out. Izuku pressed onto the image of the hideout, and a 3D hologram appeared. Izuku whirled and moved it around a bit, looking for a good place, before finally, once he was satisfied, pressing the button Build on the holopad. A black sphere appeared above the build zone, and the process began. After about a minute, Izuku stood in front of a small inconspicuous hatch, made out of metal, and colored in golden, blue, and gray colors. Izuku placed his fingers into 4 slots on it, and soon enough, the hatch opened, the creation recognizing its creator. The boy then proceeded to climb down a ladder, and finally enter the actual hideout. It was structured like a quite big apartment, with a few quirks: bedroom, bathroom, guest room, kitchen, hall, storage room, workshop, training room. Every room had everything you would expect of it, and they all were completed in the same Egypt sci-fi style, in blue, gray, and golden colors. Izuku sighed in relief, as he was finally able to take off his clothes, leaving him only in a long loincloth that perfectly provided him modesty. He wasn't a nudist per se. For some reason, he never really felt comfortable when wearing something, save for the loincloth, obviously. The boy never questioned it, just endured when in public, and relieved himself of them when at home. Hi's mother understood his needs, although she was pretty worried for him at first. After taking a stroll around the hideout, the boy began working on a new workout plan for the entrance exam. Izuku wasn't an idiot, and had done his research. The exam to enter UA High is comprised of two parts, theoretical and practical. Theoretical focuses on the academic knowledge of an applicant, the practical, combat skill. Izuku had more than enough of both of those, but, to infinity and beyond, as they say. After some time, Izuku finally finished the plan, making sure to check in with his normal schedule, to see if there is anything that needs correction. When finding none, Izuku decided to move all of the items he had created here. His mother always gives him space and free time, but he just doesn't wish to worry her with his creations. He'd rather not have his mother asking why did he have a war axe hanging in his room. With that, Izuku left his hideout. And here I am, again. Seriously, this school teaches us almost nothing at all. And it's such a discriminating place too. Izuku heaved a mental sigh, as he walked inside the classroom, and sat down at his desk, playing a bit with his psionics out of sheer boredom. Deku. Izuku slumped with just one word. Seriously, when will he learn? Izuku looked up to see Bakugo and his cronies. What do you want, Katsuki? The boy sneered at him, but said nothing, and just moodily walked over to his own desk, and sat down, propping his feet up on it. Finally, the bell had rang, and the teacher walked in. The class was still being quiet loud though. All right, settle down, y'all. I've got an announcement to make. Everyone were silent now, curious about what was their teacher going to say. Now that you all are in your final year, we should discuss your future careers. Suddenly, he threw the stack of papers Tat was in his hands into the air. But I know you all want to be heroes. Everyone instantly began cheering and using their quirks, save for Izuku and Bakugo. The teacher chuckled. That's the spirit, but please turn off your quirks, you know that their usage without license is prohibited. The teacher then took a list from his desk. Now let's see here. Oh, Bakugo, you're aiming quite high, huh? Well, with your grades and your amazing quirk, you have very good chances of passing. The blonde smirked. That's right, teach, don't lump me up with the rest of those losers. Everyone in the class, save for you-know-who, began protesting and shouting at Bakugo. The explosive teen began popping explosions from his hands threateningly. Go on, I'll take y'all on. The class immediately became quiet. The teacher cleared his throat and skimmed through the list further. Huh, Midoriya, you're trying for UA too? I can't say I'm surprised, you're plenty strong, and smart. Midoriya inclined his head in thanks, if only out of good manners. Thank you, Tsurugi-sensei. I'm planning on becoming even better before the exams come, so I believe that I will pass. Suddenly an explosion rocked Izuku's desk, and he just barely dodged getting hit by the either of them. The boy already knew who was the one to do this. Bakugo, I thought we were past this petty rivalry. When will you leave me alone? Shut the F up, you DMN Deku. We both know you're as useless as they come, so don't try to get in. Izuku sighed at the blonde's stupidity. You do know that I would never listen to you, of all people, right, Katsuki? The boy visibly grinded his teeth at that sentence, but was stopped before anyone could do anything. Settle down, you both. I just said that quirk use is prohibited without a license. In the end, both of them simply sat down, and went through the day without any more accidents, surprisingly. Although Bakugo did try to catch Izuku after class, but the latter had no patience for the former, and simply left for his house. As Izuku walked through the underpass, he suddenly heard some kind of tremors right underground. He turned around to look over at the manhole cover, that soon burst with sludge of a viscous consistency. After a few seconds, the sludge formed into a big disfigured blob, that had eyes and mouth. A middle-sized meat suit, perfect. The creature jumped at Izuku, but the boy was already in his Nerazim form, and simply teleported before the sludge could grab him. The villain turned around. So that's how it's going to be, eh? Come on man, don't resist. Izuku did the opposite. He turned into his Taldarim form, making the sludge villain hesitate, as Izuku gave a chuckle. You have picked a wrong target, Blob. Then, Izuku attacked the sludge villain with psionic lightning, making the villain scream in pain, as steam began slightly rising from him. Suddenly, someone else burst from the manhole. Never fear, for I am hero. A very awkward silence passed between the two. Izuku quickly turned back into his civilian form. All Might? What are you doing here? The man laughed. Of course. It is I, All Might. And it might seem that you've already got this handled, young man. Great job. I'm sorry for not arriving sooner though, the canalization is a pain to navigate for me. Izuku chuckled a little. It's nothing, sir, I'm fine. This is very embarrassing, but could I perhaps get your autograph? I have been a big fan of yours ever since I was. The man laughed once again. Sure thing, young dash. Izuku Midoriya is my name. Very well, young Midoriya. All Might quickly signed a slip of paper that Izuku offered him, and began collecting slime into a pair of bottles. Now, young Midoriya, I shall go. Farewell. Izuku gave him a light bow, and the man then leapt into the air, leaving the boy alone. He looked at the gift from his idol, and smiled with his eyes. Well, this is nice. With that, the boy left for his home. Meanwhile somewhere else, very afar, Matriarch Vorison, Hierarch Artanis, and High Lord Alarak were sitting in a conference room, discussing politics and such, when suddenly, a portal scked them all in, and spat them out into a forest. Where are we? Artanis was the first one to recover, and Vorison with Alarak followed soon after. I don't know, Hierarch. This portal was nothing like any of ones I've ever seen. Suddenly, Alarak looked over somewhere behind them. Perhaps we should ask him then? Both of them, confused, turned around to see a very young Protoss, walking around the forest in nothing but a loincloth. Like always, Izuku had been taking a walk in the forest, the ever-present greenery, and the chirping of birds giving him a nice, calming feeling. The boy especially loved the nearby waterfall. It was a perfect place for meditation, and the nearby lake had chilly crystal-clear water. The peaceful atmosphere was broken by the sound of someone walking towards him. Make it several someones. Izuku looked over at the source of the sound, and was stunned. In front of him, 3 people stood, who looked very similar to him, in general. Finally, one of them stepped forward. Entaro Tassadar, youngling. I am Artanis, the hierarch of the Protoss. Right now, me and my companions are in need of assistance, we're lost. Could you tell us, what is this planet? Izuku was silent for a few seconds, before he finally shook himself out of his stupor. Earth, Artani-san. What other planet could it be? Humanity has stopped trying to travel through space a few centuries ago. Do you perhaps require medical help? The man looked very surprised at that. You speak as if you are a Terran, youngling. Why is that? Izuku tilted his head. Terran? As in human? Well yeah, I am a human, it's just that my quirk made me like this. I used to look like any normal human, 10 years ago. Sir, are you sure you or your friends do not require medical help? We're near a city, I could get you to a hospital dash. No need for that, child. The woman stepped forward. I am Matriarch Vorison. What is the current year? Izuku blanched at that, but decided to indulge the woman. 2213? Why are you asking me this? Both, Artanis and Vorison were stunned at that. Thankfully, their other friend stepped up to explain. Okay kid, I'll be frank with you. Right now, the 3 of us either traveled to the past, or wound up in an entirely another universe, as insane as it sounds. I am Alarak, the High Lord of the Taldarim. Artanis is the Kailai Hierarch, and Vorison is the Nerazim Matriarch. Do you recognize any of those names? Izuku's eyes went wide. Actually, all 3 of them. Suddenly, for a few seconds, Izuku's eyes turned blue, then switched to green, then to red, and then turned back to the normal gold. Now, so far, everything you've spoken about, despite sounding insane, as you said, makes some sense. Perhaps it would be better to discuss this in my hideout. Artanis, who had already recovered along with Vorison, nodded. Certainly. It would seem that we have much to discuss. With that, Izuku and the strange group went to the hideout, and soon enough, were sitting inside its hall. Izuku sat down on a chair beside them. After a few minutes of awkward silence, the boy finally spoke. Okay, so, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Izuku Midoriya, it is a pleasure to properly meet you. With a light incline of his head, Izuku gave the word to them. Artanis was the first one out of the 3 to speak. Likewise, Midoriya. Now, during our talk in the woods, you've mentioned something called a quirk. You had said that it was what turned you from normal Terran to Protoss. What exactly is a quirk? Izuku nodded at that. This was a good question, and an icebreaker. Quirks are physical mutations of the human body. About 80% of humanity, or Terrans, as you call us, have them. Quirks are very different, so let's start with the basics. Quirks are divided into 3 groups: emitter, transformation, and mutation. Emitter quirks are ones that allow their wielder create and control fire, for example. Transformation quirks, as their name suggests, transform a portion of human body, or the whole body into something else, a drill, a blade, even a cactus. And, finally, the group I personally belong to, the mutation quirks. They're somewhat similar to the transformation one, but the difference is, mutation quirks transform their wielder's body permanently, most of the time at the same moment the quirk reveals itself. My quirk, for example, when first awakened, encased me into something akin to a crystallic sphere, or an egg, and I've spent about 2 days inside of it. After that, I came out the way I am right now. Izuku allowed the information to sink in. After a few seconds, Alarak spoke, his voice having impatience and curiosity in it. Well, what exactly does your quirk do, besides making you one of us? You've given us that color-changing demonstration back then, so what role does it play here? Izuku used his psionics to slowly float the holopad over into his hands, before speaking. My quirk grants me 4 different branches, or skill trees, as I like to call them. The first is the one I am in right now, the civilian. This form doesn't give me any combat advantages, but instead, I can turn different materials into minerals and the Vespine gas, but also I can build structures in this form. I can also create my own, beside the already existing ones, hence this hideout. I needed a place to work on my own equipment, since I can't really find a satisfactory. Izuku pressed a few buttons on it, and turned the holopad to show them. All 3 of them leaned in a little curiously. So yeah, that's the first one. The rest 3 are Kailai, Nerazim and Taldarim. Ironic, huh? With that the boy laid the holopad down onto the table, his words piquing the leader trio's curiosity even more. These 3 branches all give me some kind of combat ability, and a personality change. After that, Izuku quickly explained which one does which. So yeah, that's it. About my quirk, that is. Now the second important thing. Come on, it'll help if I also can show you. Izuku stood up, and led them over to his workshop. Then, he turned on a computer, and quickly pulled up a few videos. For the past century or so, our society has been one of heroes and villains, which may sound somewhat stupid, but it is what it is. Heroes are people with the permission to use their quirks to fight crime, or the villains, as everyone nowadays say. I myself am not overly fond of it, since our society has a lot of corruption, which can be seen by a naked eye. There are still a few heroes that I genuinely admire though, for example Japan's #1 hero, All Might. After that, Izuku pressed a button, and a video began playing out. The scene was showing a burning building. Screams could be heard. A man looked over at the camera. The guy's already saved 100 people at least, and it hasn't even been 10 minutes. This is crazy. Artanis, Vorasan, and even Alarak were surprised by these numbers. To save so many in such a short PRD of time, whoever this All Might is, he's very strong. Suddenly, all 3 were startled by a boisterous laugh. Suddenly, a gigantic man stepped into the fray of the camera, carrying about 10 people all by himself. Then, the man spoke. Fear not, for hope has arrived. Everything will be fine. Why? Because I am here. With that, the clip had ended, and Izuku looked over at the stunned trio. All Might has always been an example for me. Selfless, brave, strong, supporting, that's the kind of man I'm striving to be. I know that me showing you this wasn't necessary, but I simply wish to give you a glimpse of our world, the brightest I know. Artanis shook himself out of stupor first. He walked up to Izuku, and put a hand on the boy's shoulder. You have an amazing goal, young Izuku. Striving to help people is a very good quality. What you have just shown us, once again proves, that despite being violent, humans are capable of doing truly good things. Izuku lit up at that. Thank you, sir. Your words mean a lot to me. We should get back to the matter at hand though. After a few hours of discussion, the Protoss ensemble decided that Artanis, Vorasan and Alarak would stay in the hideout, for the time being. Ever since then, Izuku would spend most of his free time with the Protoss trio, learning about their culture. Artanis was very open about the Kailai, happy to tell him about the grandiose structure of the Protoss and their homeworld, Aiur. Vorasan was more careful, only explaining something when out of Artanis's and Alarak's, especially Alarak's, earshot. She'd speak about the clans, and Nerazim's close ties to the Void. Alarak, unlike them, was very vague in his descriptions, but very prideful, which rubbed Izuku the wrong way. He wasn't really keen on their system of ascension, or the Raksha ritual, nor the fact that they served an evil god, but he listened nonetheless, because this information could prove to be very useful. One day though, something very unusual happened. Izuku was using his Nerazim form, practicing with the scythe on the training holograms. Suddenly, he felt danger, and whirled around, just barely blocking a blow from Vorasan's own scythe. The woman huffed. Not bad, child. You still need to work on your reflexes. She deactivated her scythe, and put it away. Then, Artanis and Alarak walked in, the latter looking like he was dead on his feet, being supported by the former. Izuku looked over at the two of them, very confused. What's wrong with Alarak? Artanis sighed. Withdrawal. The Taldarim consumed Terrazine to strengthen their connection to the Void and Amon. A thought appeared in Izuku's head. Wait for a few minutes here, please. I'll be back soon. Izuku ran into the hall and grabbed Holopad. Then, he used it to order an expansion for the hideout, and finally, found what he was looking for. Mini Terrazine Assimilator, a small station that makes an opening to the Void itself, and extracts small amounts of Terrazine. Cost, 100 minerals and 100 Vespene gas. Izuku looked at the amount of resources he had. 134 minerals, and 102 Vespene gas, just enough. The boy sighed, as he pressed the build button, just in time for the new room to finish being created. He placed a hologram, and started the building process. After a minute or two, the process was finished, and Izuku walked over to the assimilator. Imagine a normal assimilator, but smaller, and darker. The boy then opened the console. Order. A small vial of Terrazine, 20 seconds. A cube of Terrazine, 5 minutes. Izuku didn't think twice, before ordering the small vial. Soon enough, a small compartment opened, and a small flask, filled with a purple substance, appeared out of it. Izuku took the vial, and ran back to the training room. Both Artanis and Vorison saw the vial, and their eyes went wide. Where did you get Terrazine, young Izuku? Izuku shrugged, as he opened and drew it near the Taldarim High Lord. I had an option of creating something called a mini Terrazine assimilator. I've read about its properties, pretty dangerous. I'll hope I'll have to use it, but I've thought of keeping it as a backup plan, but now it's also a necessity, for Alarak, that is. The High Lord finally was capable of standing normally, without Artanis' help. I guess I should be thanking you for that, kid. I've heard what you've just said, and it's true, if only partially. The breath of life can be dangerous, if consumed too much. Prior to our coming here on your dirtball, I may have gone overboard with it, hence my withdrawal, as Artanis put it. If used in small doses though, it has little consequences to the body and psyche, but gives a major power boost. Vorison looked at Alarak disapprovingly. You're not going to try and make a child take drags. This breath of life of yours is a substance that will only destroy one's sense of reason. Alarak shrugged. I just thought I'd offer. Anyway, I'll leave the option open for you, kid, but there is also another one. I've watched you train with your psionics, and I must say, it's pathetic. You definitely hold enough power to be a very dangerous warrior, but you're being too careful. Your energy limits are plenty vast, so it makes no sense to me that you're not trying to experiment with your powers, even if the results you'll gain will be very deadly. Yes, you have said that heroes don't kill, but many non-lethal ways of fighting were created from the lethal ones. I wish to unlock that potential, if you allow me. Artanis nodded. Since these two had already made their choice, so shall I, young Izuku, just as Vorison and Alarak, I wish to train you, to help you in your endeavors. It is the least I could do, after you helped us. I also admire your spirit, and your goals. Together, all three of us will teach you everything we can before and after the entrance exam to the UA Academy. That is, if you will accept our offers. Izuku was stumped, never has someone been this supporting of him as these three, even Alarak. He then visibly brightened, as a few psionic tears escaped his eyes. Yes, I accept. This is where Izuku's 10 hellish months of training had started. Izuku's training was brutal. All three of the Protoss leaders pushed him, made him go all out, to give them 100% of his effort. And surely enough, Izuku would do more than that. He would continue standing despite his body screaming at him, train until he didn't have the strength to even sit. He gave it more than 100%, he went beyond his limits, pushed them, exceeded them, as the motto of UA and every aspiring hero alike says, go beyond. Plus ultra. Now, this was Izuku's motto too, and DMN him if he wasn't going to live up to it. By the time of the entrance exam, Izuku's power was refined, and sharpened, like a sword. As the boy stood in front of the gates of the enormous building, he couldn't find even a shadow of worry or fear in himself. He was ready more than even. The theoretical portion of the exam was a breeze, due to Izuku's extensive studying and increased intelligence. The boy had checked through the questions given thrice, and he couldn't find an error in his answers. After that, he was given an application paper, and had been sit in another auditory, along with hundreds of other applicants. I dunno what is it really, sorry. Basically, it had the name of the mock city, and the explanations that Present Mike had given in the studio. Soon enough, the sound hero, Present Mike had made an appearance. Hello everybody! It's me, your favorite radio host, Present Mike. Can I get it, yeah? Silence, nothing but utter silence. The blonde hero didn't seem to be really deterred. Wow, tough crowd, huh? Well then, I guess it's time to get this show on the road. The big screen behind him turned on, showing a city, of sorts. The Mock City. One of the many, if I remember correctly. Now, the goal is quite simple. To pass, you need to get enough points. To get points, we have 3 types of robots patrolling each of the many mock cities we have. Let me to introduce to them. 3 silhouettes on the screen lit up, showing 3 similar in design green robots. These are the 1-pointer, the 2-pointer, and the 3-pointer. As their name suggests, when destroyed, they give 1, 2, or 3 points. Now, the la dash. Excuse me, sir, I have a question. A spotlight turned on, shining on a tall, blue-haired boy with glasses. Present Mike seemed to not care about the rather rude interruption. Shoot, little listener. On the application paper, there are 4 robots, but you have only explained only 3 dash. The boy continued talking, but Izuku tuned him out, knowing it wasn't anything important. And you? With the long ponytail. Izuku opened his eyes, and looked back at the boy, whose gaze fell on him. You have been sitting there the entire time, not even paying attention. Is this some kind of game to you? If you cannot take this seriously, then I suggest you leave. You are being disrespectful. Izuku immediately stood up, his eyes glowing bright red. The temperature in the room dropped by a few degrees. You speak of disrespect, and yet you were the one to interrupt Present Mike, just when he was about to continue his explanation. Also, you do not get to judge other people's actions, and tell them what they should do. If you didn't know, then UA has an official website page, dedicated to this very exam. We're here only because of ignorant fools like you, who jumped the gun, so to speak. Perhaps you should sit down, and think over your actions. The boy was stunned, petrified even. The malice in Izuku's eyes, and venom in his words, hurtful but truthful nonetheless, made him do exactly as he was ordered. Izuku's eyes turned back to the brilliant golden color, as he gave a light bow to Present Mike. My apologies, Present Mike. Please go on with your explanation. The man seemed pretty surprised at that. Oh, sure thing, little listener. Ahem, as I was saying, the last robot is named the 0-pointer. As his name suggests, you'll gain nothing by destroying him, but only waste time. His sole purpose is to create an obstacle for you, little listeners. Now, my colleague Ectoplasm here will escort you to your designated mock cities, as written in your application papers. With that, every applicant followed either one of the clones, or Ectoplasm himself, and entered the buses that were there to deliver them to the testing zones. Izuku sat in the bus along with other applicants, looking at Ectoplasm from time to time. Suddenly, the man looked back at the boy. Do you wish to ask me something, child? If so, then feel free to do so. I'll answer any of your questions, so long as they are appropriate. Izuku perked up at that. Oh, thank you. Can I get your autograph, please? I love heroes in general, and you are one of the good ones. The man was surprised, and touched by Izuku's words. And even more surprised when the boy pulled out a slip of paper and a pen, seemingly out of thin air. Nonetheless, Ectoplasm quickly recovered, and nodded. He took the paper and signed it with the pen. Of course. Here you go, child. Izuku took the paper and the pen out of Ectoplasm's hands, and teleported them back to his room. Thank you very much, sir. Ectoplasm felt his heart clench, because the boy's aura radiated so much happiness and kindness, it could be enough for 5 people. Is this really the same boy that spoke venomously to the Ida Jr.? It is really hard to believe. Ectoplasm looked over at the latter, who was watching the whole exchange with growing confusion and disbelief, the same thoughts most likely running through his mind too. The rest of the ride remained uneventful, although there was no unspoken tension, like prior to it. Now, everyone were hyped up, and more than ready to fight. Wow, I haven't thought I'd be able to make this interaction this big. 2 or 3 lines, tops, but not this. Now, the applicants, our protagonist included, stood near the entrance of the mock city, F. The school had given them 10 minutes until the start of the exam, and Izuku wasted no time. He found a perfect place for meditation, and sat down. Turning to his Kailai branch, he closed his eyes, took a meditation pose, and began floating, feeling the psionic energy that permitted the air, the earth, and the nature itself. His senses weaved around the applicants, when suddenly, he felt an abundant amount of nervousness, fear, and doubt. He opened his eyes, and scanned his surroundings, looking for the source. Finally, his eyes fell on a brown-haired girl with permanent blush on her face. Izuku flew over to her, ignoring the blue-haired boy that was clearly marching up to him. Nervous, are you? The girl startled, and looked over at him. The boy lowered himself to the ground, and she finally spoke. Yeah, I guess. It's just so scary. What if I fail? What if I don't pass? Izuku gently took her hand in his own ones. Calm yourself. You are here because you wish to become a hero. And a hero doesn't think about such things, he simply does everything in his power to protect people. Whatever is your reason for wishing to be a hero, remember it, use it to push past your fears. Give it everything you have. And if it's not enough, then you have the option of trying next time, when the sports festival comes. What I wish to say is that you should do as this school's motto demands, go beyond, plus ultra. His words had a very calming effect on her, the sheer power beneath them giving her confidence and determination. The girl smiled. I actually feel much better, thanks. You really are good at cheering people up, huh? Izuku chuckled. Perhaps, but everything I spoke is true, and can be applied to everyone else in here. Now, I wager that the exam is about to start. And he was right. Soon enough, President Mick's voice filled the area. All right, participants. The exam is about to start in 5. The gates slowly began to open, and Izuku took a running position. 4. The gates now had a visible gap in them, but big enough for Izuku to run through. 3.2. Just a few seconds more. 1. Go! Izuku rushed off immediately, using the superior speed of the Kailai form, leaving everyone else behind. Soon enough, he spotted a one-pointer making its way straight towards him. It lunged at him, but Izuku easily dodged it, and destroyed it with his bare hands. Wow, I didn't need to even use psionics. I hope the other types will provide more challenge. Half an hour since the start of the exam. The members of the UA faculty watched the progression of the exam with interest, noting several interesting applicants. Shota Aizawa had one such individual in his sights. Nizu, pull up the camera 5F. The Chimera looked over at the number 1 underground hero. Ooh, what is this I see? Are you interested in someone, Aizawa-kun? Aizawa just scowled at the principal. Just pull up the DMN feed. Nizu chuckled, but complied. Now, he too, along with the rest of the faculty were interested, just who had caught the normally uninterested hero. They watched a blue-skinned boy surrounded by 6 one-pointers. Just when they thought he was going to be taken out, the boy's eyes turned green, and he disappeared in a plume of smoke, only to reappear at the top of one of the robots, and with one brutal punch, he destroyed it. Then he had done the same thing to the rest of the robots. This is the Shadow Fury move, if some of you don't know. Midnight whistled approvingly. Who is this stud, Nizu? He's very strong. Nizu pulled up his score, and the file. Izuku Midoriya. Total points, 65. Villain points, 45. Rescue points, 20 foot. Name, Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, Protoss. You can skip this part. It's purely for story logic. Explanation, Izuku Midoriya's quirk gives him a major speed, strength and intelligence boost. His body doesn't require human food, but rather lives off of sunlight. He speaks, using telepathy, although unless he decides not to, his words will be projected into the minds of everyone in a 15-meter radius. The maximum range of his telepathy is 50 meters. He also has different skill trees, modes, or branches, Civilian, Kailai, Nerism, and Taldarim. Here is the assigned quirk doctor's comment on it. Izuku Midoriya has a very unique quirk that gives him different forms, and each one has different power. One could say that it is several separate quirks, and it indeed could be mistaken for that, but the scans had shown otherwise. Here is the list of forms and powers the boy has in possession. 1. Civilian, characterized by bright golden eyes, and Izuku's normal personality, which is kind and nervous. In this skill tree, he holds little to no abilities, save for being able to convert any matter into something the boy simply labeled minerals. Before the doctors could take a sample, the blue crystals would turn into nothing, for some reason though. As said by the name, it is very suitable for a civilian. 2. Kailai, characterized by blue eyes, changes Izuku's personality into one of a very stoic and proud man, although with him still being a kid, is quite hilarious and adorable. In this skill tree, the boy could make fast dashes that would require a 10-second break before they could be used again. He also seems to be able to shoot some kind of lightning out of his palms and float, though the latter two are very weak at the time being, or rather, untrained. This form is very fitting for a limelight hero. 3. Nerism, characterized by green eyes, changes Izuku's personality into that of a stealthy, jumpy and paranoid one. In this skill tree, he can do short-distance teleportation that are accompanied by smoke and can turn invisible, although he still can be detected with quirks like that of the PP Cat hero, Ragdoll. All in all, something fit for an underground hero. 4. Taldarim, characterized by red eyes, changes Izuku's personality into that of a very arrogant, aggressive, but charismatic man. Very hilarious while he is a child too, but in future, it could provide problems to the boy, so Izuku would have to learn how to control it. In this skill tree, the boy can do the lighting and floating that he can use in his Kailai form, but several times more powerful. It would seem that this skill tree's purpose is to give the wielder power to overwhelm his enemies. The boy seems to be able to switch his skill tree anytime he wants, at least, as much as the observations has shown. There may be some kind of restriction on that, emotional or otherwise, but it has yet to show. By the time Nizu finished reading the boy's file, everyone were gawking. Nizu chuckled. If this was power he had wielded when he was 4, just imagine how strong he is right now. I will definitely put him in your class, Eraserhead. This kind of strength needs the best nurturing it can get, no offense to you, Vlad. The white-haired man just nodded. He wasn't sure he could give this kid the mentoring he needs either. Aizawa just groaned. Ugh, I don't get paid enough for this. 55 minutes since the start of the exam. Izuku ran around the city, looking for any left pointers, but it would seem that they have all been destroyed. Suddenly, the ground shook. Izuku turned around to see a giant robot, wreaking havoc in the mock city. Is this the zero-pointer? Is the UA out of their minds to put something like this here? Just as Izuku was about leave, he heard a scream. The boy searched for the source, and found it to be the brown-haired girl. She was pinned under rubble, and couldn't get up. He rushed over to her, and was by her side in a few seconds. I saw that she was using her quirk to make things float. Did she reach some kind of limit? Izuku quickly lifted the rubble, freeing her. He then sprinted over to a building, and put her nearby a primary pillar of it. She didn't speak, too shocked by her sudden rescue. He then quickly ran back outside, and stood in front of the gigantic robot. This girl may not be the only one who will get hurt by this monstrosity. I have to destroy it. With that, his eyes glowed a very familiar, blood-red color. Time to get rid of trash. The bigger they are, the more painful the fall is, right? Izuku began coalescing every drop of psionic energy possessed in his hands. A few seconds later, he began shooting psionic lighting at the robot. Everyone nearby watched and gaped, as the thing started smoking all over, then suddenly explosions shook its frame, as it fell backwards, and Izuku stopped. He fell on his knees, completely drained. Suddenly, Mick's voice could be heard through the speakers. The exam is over. Proceed to the exit, or the infirmary, if there is anyone injured. Izuku shakily stood up, and walked over to the building, where he left the girl. She still was shocked, but was actually coherent now. You saved me. Thank you so much. Izuku's eyes turned back to gold. Don't mention it. I am going to be a hero, so I must act as such. He picked her up, and began walking back to the mock city's exit. Sure enough, everyone were watching him in shock, awe, and even a few in anger, or envy. He paid them no mind however, and simply walked over to the pro-heroine recovery girl. The elderly woman noticed him approaching, and immediately understood the situation. Put her over there, gently. Izuku did as ordered, and laid the girl down on a berth. Good. Now, what seems to be the problem, dearie? The girl pointed at her ankle. I think I broke my ankle. It hurts, badly. Izuku shook his head. It may be more than that. You've been pinned by a good amount of debris, but I'll leave the assessment to the doctor here. Now, if you excuse me dash. Wait. Izuku turned back to the girl. What's your name? I never got it. Izuku smiled with his eyes. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and yours? It's only fair, if you share it. The girl blushed for some reason. Ochako Uraraka, it's very nice to meet you, Midoriya-kun. Izuku inclined his head. Likewise, Uraraka-san. Nonetheless, I must now leave, see you around. With that, Izuku left the UA grounds, mentally preparing himself for waiting until his letter arrives. It has been 5 days since the entrance exam, and Izuku was getting impatient. How can it take so long for one simple letter to be delivered? I know that there are hundreds of people, but surely UA has heard of printers. There was something else eating at him too, though. Izuku looked over at his mother. For the past 10 months, he had been lying to her, telling her that he has become this strong all by himself, if only to protect the existence of his teachers. A lie is a lie though, and nothing will change that. No matter how much time he'll spend with Alarak, he could never make himself not feeling guilt over lying to his mother. Anyone else's fair game, though. Izuku sighed. Perhaps I should tell her. Perhaps she will understand the situation, and say nothing. She had raised me, not caring about how I looked. Would she care that I have those 3 as teachers? Absolutely. Would it be in a bad way? Cannot say for sure. I should probably talk to Artanis, Vorison and Alarak first though. With that, Izuku walked inside his room and locked the door. I'll be studying, Mom. Don't worry if you don't hear an answer. Sure thing, Izuku. Just not stay there for too long. Okay, Mom, thanks. After that, Izuku walked over to the middle of his room and disappeared in a bright flash of blue light. The next second, he was inside the hideout's teleportation room. Soon enough, he found Artanis, Alarak and Vorison, who were just chilling. They weren't doing anything, just relaxing on the couch and exchanging an occasional phrase or two. The temptation was too great. Izuku summoned his phone and took a picture. Then, he put it away and walked inside the room properly. All three Protoss leaders immediately noticed him. Hello, youngling. Is there something you need? If it's training, then I thought that we agreed that we won't train you until your UA letter comes. Izuku shook his head. No, nothing of the sort. It's just, well, you know that I've been lying to my mother about you. Vorison perked up at that. You shouldn't have. Yeah, so may I tell her? The truth, I mean? I'm not sure for how long I will be able to continue doing this. Alarak snorted. Why are you asking us? It's your mother, after all. Izuku shrugged. Well, it's you I am lying about to her, so I wanted your consent. Alarak waved his hand dismissively. Do what you want. Artanis inclined his head. I am grateful that you decided to give us privacy like this, but it shouldn't have come at the expense of lying to your creator. I give my consent. Vorison nodded in agreement. So do I. As you know, Izuku, the Nerazim put family above all else. While I understand where your concern came from, I do not approve of this action. Izuku bowed his head in an apology. I'm sorry, Vorison-sensei. I'll bring my mom here soon. With that, Izuku ran back to the teleportation room and then was back in his room. He unlocked the door and walked into the living room. Sure enough, his mother was sitting on the couch. She turned around and smiled at Izuku. Do you need something, Izuku? You're already out of your room. Izuku shook his head. No, I just, wanted to show you something. Inko perked up in curiosity at him and stood up. What is it? You sound nervous. Izuku walked over and hugged her. Then, before she could utter a word, bright light surrounded the both of them and they disappeared. Once they appeared back in hideout, Inko began looking around in shock. Izuku, where are we? Izuku took her by her hands, gently. Welcome to the secret hideout, Mom. It is only half of what I wanted to show, but I haven't been truthful with you for the past year. I'm sorry. Inko's gaze softened. I'm not mad, Izuku. Everyone are allowed to have secrets, and so are you. Now, what else did you wish to show me? Izuku's eyes were wide, and psionic tears began leaking out of them. Okay, so I've recently found out that the Protoss are made purely out of psionic energy, despite having flesh and blood. When they cry psionic energy, basically teardrops made out of it appear, leak and dissipate in the air. Thank you, Mom. He wiped his face furiously, willing the tears to go away. Come on. I'll show you who have been training me for the past 10 months. Now, Inko frowned in confusion. She hoped that the people Izuku was trained by were nice. The mother-son duo walked into the living room. AKA the room that my dumb but was calling the hall. Inko saw 3 different people sitting on 2 couches, all of them bearing uncanny similarities to her son. All of them perked up when noticing her. The green-eyed one spoke first. She had a feminine voice, so Inko assumed she was a female. Already back with us, Izuku? Good. The blue-eyed one stood up and walked over to them. Entaro Tassadar, Mrs. Midoriya. It is nice to finally meet you in person. I am Hierarch Artanis. Please sit down, we have much to talk about. Inko was charmed. Not romantically. I am not doing something akin to a June Darby X Optimus Prime ship, nope. It's nice to meet you too, dearie. I'm glad that my son had such good influences on him. Vorison snorted. Me and Artanis? Maybe. Alarak right there? Definitely not. To quote Artanis, it's nice to meet you, Mrs. Midoriya. I am Matriarch Vorison. Alarak grumbled something at her words, then turned around to take a look at Izuku's mother. After a few seconds, he turned around and went back to sleep. Both Artanis and Vorison looked in exasperation at the Taldarim High Lord. Izuku pinched the bridge of his nose, or where it should be, in theory. Protoss don't require oxygen to live. I guess we can do this without Alarak. After that, Izuku, Vorison, and Artanis began explaining everything to Inko, from the fact that her son's quirk makes him an alien from another universe, to them being the very same aliens, just like him. Suffice to say, Inko was shocked, PRD. By the time they were done, Inko was almost frothing at her mouth. The green-haired woman took a few minutes to process the information she was given. It was hard to believe that her son was an alien for the last 11 years, that he was basically the bridge between three fractions of aliens, and that they were from an entirely another universe, where there is no quirks, but technology. Eventually, Inko was able to pull herself together. She still was shaken to the core. She took a deep breath, and steeled her nerves. No matter who her son is, she will give him love and protection. That's what she promised herself the same day that Izuku woke up after his quirk awakening. She wasn't about to break that promise. This all still feels a little surreal, but I believe you. I also understand why you kept this from me, Izuku. As I said before, I'm not mad, nor disappointed. Your teachers are good, at least these two, but I can't say this for sure about this Alarak, since he slept through the entire explanation. By the way, what's up with that? Izuku sighed. Nothing much, he's just tired. I'm still trying to understand why though. Because you've been taking my psionic powers, kid. Izuku perked up at that, looking over at Alarak, who was already awake. What do you mean, Alarak-sensei? Alarak sighed. You see, if a Taldaram's strong enough, they may learn how to leech off others' psionic powers. You didn't do any lasting damage, but due to the fact that this went on throughout the last 2 months of our training, I'm drained, and will require several days to get back in action. From then, I'll teach you how to control this ability too. There will be a condition that I will name during the training, though. Now, I don't remember for sure, but if I am right, then High Templars of the Kailai, or someone else, have an ability like that, but I may be wrong, so it may be considered my own creation. I dunno, research if you want to. Also, can you guess what the condition will be? Well, you will probably guess from the tags, but I don't give an F. Izuku nodded. He wasn't happy about the fact that Alarak kept this from him, but knowing the Taldaram High Lord, there was no point in expressing his frustrations to the guy. He would only be amused, if anything. Sure. So long as it's not something outlandish. Alarak chuckled. No, it's not, don't worry. Izuku, despite having practically none facial features, managed to deadpan at him. Alarak snorted, and went back to sleeping. Both of them missed Vorazan's and Artanisa's worries looks. The next week, too, was spent waiting, since there was no letter yet. Inko and the Protoss leaders got to find out more about each other. Safe to say, Vorazal and Inko took quite a liking to each other, and Izuku wasn't sure whether to be happy or scared. Yes, his mother was the sweetest of sweethearts in the world, but wasn't called the court dragon for nothing. In the past, Inko was a lawyer, the most successful one in the country, with success rate of 100%. Yes, she had never lost a case that had been assigned to her. It's partially the reason why their family wasn't struggling financially wise. Inko had earned enough money to last the two of them for the past 11 years, and they still had enough to last them another 11, at least. Once Vorazan heard of that, she held even more respect for Inko, because she fought for the rights of innocent people, for justice, and for equality. Artanis too, was impressed with her. She had raised a child all by herself, and he turned out a very good young man. Alarak didn't care about it at all. Izuku rushed into the hideout's living room, along with his mother. In his hands he was holding the letter from UA. All three Protoss leaders, even Alarak, perked up once they noticed. The latter scoffed. Finally. I was thinking it would never come. Izuku chuckled. Yeah. Anyway, let's see my results. Izuku ripped the letter open, and a small metallic disc fell out of it. The next second, a hologram appeared out of it. And it was showing All Might. Hello, young Midoriya. Yes, it is I, All Might. You may ask, what am I doing here? Well, everything is quite simple. Right now you're looking at the new member of the UA faculty. Suddenly, a hand appeared from behind the camera. What is it? Speed this up? Wait, how many of these I need to make? Oh, I see, ahem. Well, it seems that I'll have to do this faster, young Midoriya. In your theoretical exam, you have done really well, 97%. This makes second only to another student, who has taken the special entrance exam, for the elites, if you will. But back to the current matter. In your practical exam, you racked up 80 villain points, quite impressive. That alone is enough to allow you passage into this prestigious facility. However, what kind of hero we would be, if we didn't reward our applicants' heroism? Due to the fact that you have saved many other participants during the exam, you have gained 95 rescue points. This score places you into the first place amongst all students, and makes you a new recordsman. Yes, you have heard me right, you have beaten even yours truly. My score in the exam was 150 points, yours? Whooping 175. With that, I must conclude this message, but don't be disheartened, young man. We will see each other again. Welcome, to your Hero Academy. Izuku sat in shock. He couldn't even move a muscle. Suddenly, tears began pouring from his eyes. Alarak groaned. "Oh come on kid, stop with the sappy sheet." Vorazan decked him. Inko scooted closer to her son. "Izuku, are you okay?" The boy nodded. "Why yeah, it's just I am so happy right now. I passed, with F flying colors. I have done even be better than All Might did. And to think, it's all because of you. All of you. I thank you, for standing by my side, for helping me, for encouraging me, I can't express my gratitude with words." Artanis laid a hand on boy's shoulder. "Don't put yourself down, Izuku. Me, Vorazan and Alarak may have given you a chance to improve, but it was you who made the decision to take it, and you are the one who put his whole being into it. We offered you a hand, and you took it." Inko took Izuku's hands in her own. "He's right Izuku. You put so much effort into becoming strong, and look what you have achieved. This is all you, dear." Alarak snorted. "Do not let it get to your head, though. You still have much to learn, kid." Vorazan sighed. "As much as it pains me to admit it, Alarak is right. Arrogance could cost you the victory. And Alarak knows what that feeling is firsthand." He grumbled at that, but at least didn't go to sleep this time. "That's good. This means I can learn how to control this new ability soon enough. I wonder what is the condition he was speaking of." Izuku found out on the very next day. He walked inside the room that Alarak asked him to create specifically for today's training. The Taldaram High Lord was already there. "You're here, good. Let's start our training. First, obviously, enter your Taldaram form." Izuku did as told, and began waiting for further instructions. Suddenly, Alarak snapped his fingers, and the room locked shut. Then, it began filling with purple mist. Izuku was quick to realize what it was. "Terrazine? What the hell is this, Alarak-sensei? You know that I don't like this stuff." Alarak sighed. "Sadly for you, this is the only way for you to learn how to control this ability. After all, it stems from the void itself. Otherwise, any Taldaram would be able to use it. Terrazine itself comes from the void, it allowed us to connect to it, to meld it, and use it." Izuku felt the gas entering his body. For a second, there was nothing, until Izuku felt pure joy and power. He felt as if he could destroy mountains, obliterate cities, and for once, he wished for it. Alarak walked over to him and put a hand on the boy's shoulder, snapping him out of the dark thoughts. "Control yourself, kid. We need to start our lesson, don't we?" Izuku nodded, still struggling to keep his mind together. Alarak pulled out 3 different, cube-like objects. "As I have told you, this ability allows you to take psionic energy from other objects or people. Or, if you're skillful enough, even life force. These cubes are filled with psionic energy. Feel the energy inside them, grab it, and take it for yourself. You'll need to learn how to use it under Terrazine's effect first, before you will be able to try without it." Izuku nodded, as he began feeling out the waves of psionic energy, trying to find his way to the cubes. It took him good few minutes, since Terrazine generates its own kind of waves, that warp psionic energy, make it harder to navigate, but now, he could feel the cube's energy. He then tried to focus, and grasp it. The energy weaved, twisted, tried to run away from him, but in the end, it was locked, and Izuku was able to grab it. Then, he began pulling it to himself, which surprisingly easy, since the energy now too was corrupted by Terrazine, and Izuku could drag it back much more easier. Once the boy was finished, he could feel how this foreign psionic energy merged with his own pool. The feeling was pretty refreshing, like jumping into a chilly lake after spending a few hours under sun. He then heard Alarak, "TSK. That was very slow kid. At least you got it on your first try. We should stop here, too much Terrazine absorbed by your body. A warning, your body will feel the recoil tomorrow. Try not to spill what happened today to your mother, okay?" Izuku nodded. This was something he could never tell her. Safe to say, both Artanis and Vorazan knew what happened, but, surprisingly, said nothing, probably due to Alarak being able to convince them, somehow. Anyway, Izuku was thankful to them. Thankfully, Izuku's first day in UA wouldn't be for another day, so Izuku was able to recuperate from the effects of the gas on the day prior to it. It wasn't pretty, Izuku's whole body ached, he wanted to lash out at everything and everyone, and could barely form any coherent thoughts. "How nice to see that the both of our star students have entered the most prestigious academy in the country. I expect great things from you, boys." Both Izuku and Katsuki just nodded, not saying everything. Aldera's principal gave a hearty chuckle. "Well, off with you two, wouldn't want to hold you back here, would we?" A few minutes later, both Izuku and Katsuki almost walked past an alleyway, when suddenly, the blonde grabbed Izuku, and dragged him inside, pinning him to a wall. "What the hell is this, Deku? I thought I told you not to apply." Izuku scoffed, as he easily pushed his former best friend away. And you really had thought that I would listen? Huh. You are an idiot, Kaken. Izuku's eyes began glowing a very bright red, making Bakugo take a step back. You didn't hold any power over me back then, still don't, and will never do. As if I'd ever listen to you ordering me around. I'm the one who's stronger here, not you. It is me who can turn your brain into mush with a snap of my fingers. I simply don't, because I am a better person than you will ever be. Izuku was running towards UA at full speed. He was excited to meet his new classmates, and generally start his days in UA. Maybe that girl will be in my class too. She was pretty, I'd like to see her again. Wait, where did that come from? Ugh, stupid hormones. Izuku's light blue cheeks turned a very dark blue. He shook his head then. Focus. I'm here to become a hero, not run after a girl's skirt. With that, Izuku took off once again. Soon enough, he was already rushing through the halls of the prestige facility. 1A, 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 there. Izuku stood in front of a giant door, with a sign 1A. That's one big door. I guess it makes sense though, there are many quirks that increase one size. Izuku slowly opened it, and then began regretting the choices of his whole life. Seriously, the both of them are here? Indeed, inside the classroom, there were two people that Izuku recognized, the blue-haired boy from the exam, and Katsuki. Izuku heaved a mental sigh. This is the worst kind of match-up. The boy then steeled himself, and walked inside. Instantly, all eyes were on him. For the most part though, the attention lasted for just a second, before everyone went back to doing whatever they did. For the most part, is the key phrase. The blue-haired boy rushed over to him. Hello, my name is Tenya Ida from Sumai Academy. Now Izuku was just confused. Izuku Midoriya, from Aldera High? The boy fixed his glasses. I see. Well, Midoriya-kun, I wish to apologize for my behavior during the exam. You clearly are a much better person than I am. You have discovered the true nature of the exam. Izuku chuckled. Apology accepted. And are you talking about the rescue points? Because I had no idea they even existed, so do not worry about it, Ida-san. Oh, hey, it's you. Izuku turned around at the familiar voice. Right there, at the doorstep, Uraraka stood, with a bubbly smile on her face. Entaro Tassadar, Uraraka-san. It is nice to see you again too. Suddenly, Izuku's eyes turned green, and he teleported, holding his claws against someone's neck. Who the hell are you and what are you? Oh? Suddenly, Izuku recognized the face of the man inside the yellow sleeping bag. He bowed down in an apology. My apologies, sir. I didn't recognize you. The boy teleported back into the classroom, and his eyes turned to their regular gold. The man got out of the sleeping bag, and walked over to the middle of the classroom. Good reaction, kid. Now, I am Shota Aizawa, your classroom teacher for the next 3 years. We will be having a quirk apprehension test. Put these on, and meet me outside. With those words, Aizawa pulled out a box with PE uniforms. Uraraka tried to interject, but Izuku just waved a hand in her face. When she looked at him in confusion, he shook his head, then just took one of the uniforms, and walked out in the same direction as Aizawa did. Everyone else snapped out of their stupor, and rushed to do the same. Midoriya-kun, may I inquire as to why you don't wear traditional underwear? When the question registered, Izuku broke down in laughter. No one had ever asked so formally, why did he wear a loincloth? After a few seconds Izuku calmed down. Sorry Ida, you phrased the question funnily. As to why, well, I've never felt comfortable in boxers, briefs, trunks, and etc. The loincloth though, while giving me modesty, is very free and doesn't chafe my body in any places. The red, spiky-haired boy grinned, showing off his sharp teeth. That's cool dude, no judgment here. By the way, you're very muscular, what's your training regime? Izuku looked over at him. Thanks. About 40% of my muscles are from my quirk though. It's very complicated, but I'll explain after the test. You are quite burly too though. Seems like you've done a lot of work on yourself, huh? I am Izuku Midoriya, by the way. The other boy gave him a thumbs up. Thanks, man. Oh, and nice to meet you, I'm Eijiro Kirishima. Izuku inclined his head. Likewise, Kirishima-san. Kirishima shook his head. Just Kirishima's fine, Midobro. Midobro? I guess that's fine. After a few minutes everyone finally changed, and went outside, along with the girls. Aizawa already was waiting for them, as he said. 5 minutes. That's too long of a time. We'll have to work on it. Aizawa looked over at Izuku. Midoriya, you've scored the most villain points in the exam. How long was your throw distance in middle school? 107.4 meters, sensei. My quirk gives me a permanent strength boost, amongst other things. The man snorted. So I've noticed. Right now you'll do the same, but with your quirk. Do whatever you want, but remain in the circle, and make sure to use your full strength. The man threw him a ball, which the boy caught without a glance at it, as he walked into the circle. Someone muttered, "Show off," but Izuku paid them no mind, already thinking of the best way to throw ball. After a minute or so, he turned into Taldarim, and began charging up psionic energy. After 10 seconds or so, he threw the ball up in the air, and fired off a blast, sending it flying very far away. He never noticed his teacher's eyes turn red when he did so. The man then frowned in confusion, but stopped, and announced the score. 957.3 meters. The man then turned to the class. This is only a start. In the next few hours, you'll go through the 8 basic assessing exercises that you went through in middle school, with the use of quirks. Everyone in the class began cheering. A pink-haired girl then said something very wrong for the current circumstances. This will be so fun. We get to use our quirks. Fun, huh? The class turned to their classroom teacher. His eyes were glowing bright red, his hair and scarf were floating. Do you think this is fun and games? Well then, let's spice up the game. Whoever comes in the last place will be expelled immediately. How's that for fun? Uraraka seemed very outraged. But this is not fair. We haven't even properly started, and you're already going to expel one of us? Izuku sighed, and walked over to Uraraka. He looked her in the eyes, his bright golden orbs giving off a very calming effect. Uraraka, you do know that the world isn't fair either, right? People die from diseases, because they can't pay for medicine, in natural disasters, in villain attacks. There is also discrimination and bigotry. None of these is fair. And we, all of us, are here to become heroes, who combat that unfairness. Am I right, sensei? The man looked surprised, but nodded. Everything that Midoriya just said is true. I'm glad that at least one of you has a proper hat on their shoulders. The man didn't listen to any more complaints, just started the tests. I'll skip the exercises, since they're nothing really interesting, sorry. After the tests, Aizawa announced the results. Izuku saw his name in the second place, just below someone named Momo Yaoyorozu. He sighed in contentment. Then he got curious who was in the last place. Minoru Mineta. Poor guy. Then Izuku heard a shrill cry. No, I can't be expelled, I can't. I still haven't touched a girl's melons or ACK. Before he could finish, Izuku used his psionics to send the boy face first into the ground. Not poor guy. The boy then heard a sigh from their teacher. If you haven't said that, I would have left in the class. However, I won't tolerate harassment in my class. Mineta, go to the principal's office. The boy did as told. He ran away, crying rivers of tears. The pink-haired girl walked over to Izuku. Hey stud, thanks for that. You are a real gentleman, aren't you? The girl got closer to his face with her words. Izuku blushed. Well that I was only doing what any guy who has decency would do. The girl leaned away, giving him a very bubbly laugh. Don't sweat it, dude. That was very nice of you. Izuku nodded, while the girl just walked back to the other girls. Aizawa sighed once again. Get changed in the locker rooms. Your lessons will start soon. The rest of the day went pretty uneventfully. Despite UA being considered special, it still had pretty much the same subjects as in any normal school. As Izuku was on his way out of the UA grounds, he was joined by Ida and Uraraka. All three agreed to walk to the train station together. After that, they parted ways. All in all, not a bad first day. The next day at UA had been painfully slow, boring even. While Izuku knew that no matter what, UA still primarily is an educational facility, he thought that they would have added a bit more action into the schedule. Thankfully, it seemed as if the universe had answered his pleas. Today, you all will have your first Foundational Hero Studies class. I was asked not to divulge who is going to be your teacher by the principal himself, for reasons beyond myself. Anyway, that's all. From then on, it was only an hour or two, until the lesson finally came, and everyone were hyped up, some even were betting on who was their teacher. Izuku then felt a change in psionic energy everywhere within the radius of 20 meters, and immediately looked over at the door. Then, he heard someone loudly say, I am here dash. Suddenly, All Might, of all people, burst through the door. Coming through a door like a normal person. If Izuku could, he would have sweat dropped. That's definitely not how normal people walk through a door, All Might. The number one hero then walked over to the middle of the classroom. Hello, young students. As my colleague Aizawa probably said, right now, you'll have your first Foundational Hero Studies class. Now, today's exercise will be Battle Trials. The class erupted in a wave cheers. All Might's grin widened a little. That's the spirit, young students. Now, before we go, what kind of heroes can you be, without your hero costumes? All Might pressed a button on the desk's underside, and suddenly, the wall slid open, revealing 18 cases. Each costume has been made with the design you have gave the support course in mind. Each case has a certain number on it, which corresponds with your sitting arrangements. Now, go on, and put these on. I want to see this generation's future heroes shining brighter than stars at night. Everyone immediately grabbed their cases, and rushed over to get changed. Everyone, save for Izuku, who calmly followed everyone else. Warning. A very cringe, in my opinion, scene incoming. Everyone were surprised, when Izuku simply took off his clothes, and walked out, before Ida could reprimand him. A few minutes the whole class walked out of the changing, with Izuku just standing there, but already in an outfit. Ida was quick to begin reprimanding him, his robotic handchops looking even more natural in his armored suit. Izuku raised his hand in a calming gesture. Calm down, Ida-kun. This actually has to do with my quirk. You see, my quirk, while primarily making my appearance like this, also gives me 4 different branches, so to speak, and each has a different skill set and personality change for me. Right now, I'm in my civilian form, or, as I've dubbed it today, the Phase-Smith branch. You can distinguish them by the color of my eyes. Golden is Phase-Smith, blue is Kailai, green is Narizim, and red is Taldarim. And, as maybe a few of you had already guessed, I have a separate suit for each one of them, even Phase-Smith, although it's a form I use in a peaceful setting. Props to the Hartarian for the Phase-Smith idea. By the way, in his Phase-Smith form, Izuku's hero costume will be the same clothes as Karix's. The boy then looked over at All Might. All Might-sensei, I know that I may be asking a lot, but can I show off a little? To at least familiarize my classmates with my different looks. All Might laughed. Of course, but only if the rest of the students don't mind. Izuku looked over them, and most of the members of the class seemed interested, a few even cheered. I'll take that as their agreement, then. Izuku turned Kailai. Then, he was engulfed in blue light. It began forming armor over Izuku's body, and by the end of the process, Izuku stood clad in metallic armor suit, holding a war axe. The armor was colored in golden, blue, and white colors. It also had stripes of cloth hanging from his shoulders, groin, and ischium. Go look up Starcraft 2 Armored Zealot. The fully suited up zealots are exactly what Izuku looks like RN, with the addition of the cloths. The class looked in awe at the boy's new look. Kirishima was crying crocodile tears, while whispering, so manly. Ida nodded in appreciation. Izuku chuckled. That's not all, you guys. Izuku's eyes turned green, and his body was covered in shadows. When they fell away, Izuku stood in an entirely different outfit. Izuku's lower portion of his head was framed by jagged jaws. On his shoulders, he had 2 different pauldrons. One looked like a pauldron from the armor suit, although the color was green instead of blue, while the other looked like it was made out of a monster's head. Izuku's body only had a crossed HRNSS on it, with an emblem in the connection place, the design of which repeating the pauldron. Izuku's legs had nothing but kneecaps and boots, fitted to Izuku's legs, both of which having the same style as the HRNSS center and the pauldron. His wrists each had bracelets. The loincloth on the crotch was much bigger, and offered very good modesty. Izuku also had a very long cloak falling from his shoulders. In his hands, Izuku was holding a staff, that lit up the next second, and now it was a 2-bladed scythe. Inspiration from Starcraft 2 Dark Templar. A few members of the class flinched at the intimidating look. It was the opposite of the Kailai armor, which looked very orderly. This outfit on the other hand, seemed like something a tribeman from Wilderness would wear. A few people flinched. Tokoyami and Dark Shadow both gave their thumbs up, the former secretly struggling not to smile. Izuku sighed, understanding why a few of his classmates were intimidated. Even All Might's grin loosened a little. Welp, now the final one. Izuku's eyes turned red, and lightning raced up his arms, then covered his torso, and then spread to the rest of his body. After a few seconds, lighting formed into armor. The armor was very spiky, completed in black and red colors. Izuku had a pair wrist guards, and boots. Otherwise, his arms and legs were fully bare for everyone to see. His nerve cords were also covered with armor. Starcraft 2 Ascendant, and Alarak. The girls blushed at his muscular physique. Mina gave a wolf whistle. Man, how many people did you choke with those thighs? Half of the class short-circuited. Izuku, on the other hand, chuckled. None, at least not yet. Feel free to be the first volunteer, Ashido. The pink-haired girl sputtered, her cheeks turning lilac from blushing. I guess that's the personality change you were taking about. The boy shrugged at that, as he snapped his fingers, and a red hakama appeared, covering his legs. Basically what Alarak has. Somewhat, but it's a bit more complicated. Everyone have the full spectrum of emotions, save for those who are mentally ill. My combat branches bring out different qualities of me. Kailai brings out the stoicity, pride, and honor. Basically, your stereotypical hero. Nerism makes me more wary, suspecting, paranoid, the whole sociopathic package. In my current the Taldarim form, I become much more aggressive, cunning, and dash. He winked at the girls. Charismatic. With that, Izuku's armor disappeared, and his eyes turned back to their usual golden. I'm so sorry guys, I really like the idea of Izuku having a different costume for each of his forms, but I didn't know how to better accomplish this. I know this is probably really cringe, but please bear with me. Also, end of the cringe scene. All Might chuckled a bit. Let's get this started then. Now, let me debrief you on your goal. This will be a team versus team indoors exercise. The rules are simple, 2 heroes enter the base of the 2 villains. In order for the heroes to win, they have to either catch the villains, we have a special capture tape made for this purpose, or to touch the weapon, that will be hidden by the villains. The weapon looks like a rocket, pretty simple, huh? For the villains to win, they'll have to either capture the heroes, or wait until the time limit runs out. Each exercise will go on for 15 minutes. Teams will be drawn randomly. Now, any questions? Ida was very fast in that regard. All Might Sensei, why are we being split randomly? Wouldn't it be better if we were able to choose our teammates on our own? Before All Might could answer, Izuku did. Well, you know, Ida, heroes don't always get to pick who they team up with. Sometimes, they have to work alongside someone completely unknown to them. Am I right, All Might Sensei? All Might gave him the finger guns. Very astute, young Midoriya. Yes, that is right. Azui put a finger to her lips in question. Isn't this a bit too advanced for our first exercise, All Might Sensei? The blonde's grin turned a bit strained, which no one, but Izuku, who sweat dropped, noticed. He seriously didn't think about that? I guess he is very new to this whole teaching thing though. The man quickly recovered. It may seem so, young Azui, but let me tell you a small secret. All of the hero fights you see in public, they're not even 50% of the overall work heroes do. Most of the true fights happen indoors, where the most cunning of the villains hide themselves. Good save on his part. Then, All Might pulled out a box. Now, in here, I have 20 balls with 10 different letters on them. You will form your teams based on that. Every student quickly took a ball each, leaving only one discarded. All Might hummed. Weird, I thought there were 20 of you, young zygotes. Oh. Right, Mineta was expelled. I almost forgot he even was with us yesterday. All Might Sensei, one of the students was expelled yesterday just after the Quirk apprehension test. The number 1 hero quickly swept Class 1A with a look, before understanding who was left out. Young Midoriya, it seems that you're all alone. I can't say I expected this, so I'll allow you to decide. Izuku spoke without hesitation. I wish to participate, All Might Sensei. I said that heroes don't always pair up with who they want, but they also don't always get to even pair up with someone, and have to fight against multiple targets. Izuku chuckled when he saw Kirishima cry rivers as he screamed, so freaking manly. The hero cleared his throat, as his grin became even more wide. That's the spirit, young Midoriya. Very well, let's start our exercise. Our first battle will be Team B versus Team I. Combatants, proceed to the designated area. You have 5 minutes to plan your moves out. Everyone else, with me. Teams are the same as canon. Excellent. Now, the final battle will be Team A versus Team D. Combatants, proceed to the designated area. Izuku, Bakugo and Ida went to the building, with the blonde boy glaring at Izuku, to which the Protoss youngling replied with his own one. Soon enough, Izuku stood in front of a 6th-floored building. Now, the easiest way would be to simply sneak past them, and take the bomb. None of the two know my abilities at all, well, other than what I displayed in the apprehension test, which is psionic blasts, the teleportation and the dash. Well, this will be my primary plan. But if it fails, Bakugo would definitely be gunning for me, and wouldn't work together with Ida, leaving him to guard the bomb. I may have gotten a bit better with the drain trick, but I still can't use it without Terrazine. Although, I guess I'll easily defeat Katsuki anyway. Izuku thought for about a few more seconds, the plan finally forming in his mind. Okay, so I defeat Katsuki, and then go to Ida, and secure the weapon in invisibility. Most likely, they would put it on the 4th or 3rd floor, to buy themselves time, no matter where I decide to go in. I will be playing a bit of a gamble here, but if it works out, I'll end this quickly. Participants, begin. Izuku sighed. And, that's my K. Izuku quickly started off with a dash, utilizing his Kailai form. He went straight for the stairs, as soon as he found them. After a minute or so, he already was on the 3rd floor. Then, he felt familiar life force. Instinctively, Izuku dodged, just in time for Bakugo's explosion. He then immediately counterattacked, by driving the hilt of his war axe right into the blonde solar plexus, sending his opponent skidding on the ground from the force. Bakugo's breaths were very shallow, almost non-existent. Izuku quickly secured capture tape around his arms, and went on. He quickly ran around the whole floor, but didn't find the bomb, and went to find his way to the stairs up. Katsuki Bakugo has been captured. 10 minutes left. Soon enough, Izuku reached the 4th floor, and then found Ida, who was monologuing like a very stereotypical villain from the cartoons. Izuku had to suppress a chuckle, as his eyes turned green. Then, he turned invisible, and quickly walked around the armored villain. He put his hand on the bomb, and dropped his disguise. The weapon has been captured. Hero team wins. Ida looked surprised, then when he saw Izuku having his hand on the weapon, his surprise turned into shock. Midoriya, how did you dash? Invisibility, Ida-kun. Now come on, let's go back dash. Deku? Izuku sighed, as he prepared for an onslaught of curse words and insults. What he wasn't prepared for, is a giant explosion coming his and Ida's way. Izuku's instincts were faster than his mind though, and he quickly grabbed Ida, and dodged the attack. The boy looked over at the blonde, who had the most murderous expression that he had ever seen on his face. He immediately rushed at Izuku, and tried to attack him. Izuku didn't care about it though. He quickly slipped into his Taldaram form, and with a bellowing war cry he began an onslaught of psionic lightning, making Bakugo scream in pain. Izuku could still hear All Might though. Young Bakugo, Midoriya, stop. The exercise is over. Izuku did as told, and stopped his attack. Not before restraining Bakugo with psionics though. Then, he picked Bakugo up, and floated him, before beginning to make his way back to the observation room. He looked over at Ida, who seemed to have finally snapped out of his shock. Come on Ida, let's go back. Ida, still shocked from the whole attack, just numbly nodded, and walked after Izuku. Well, that happened. Shut up, you idiot. Jiru-chan, come on. The oblivious dumbass in love aside, Izuku watched with concern, as Bakugo was carted off by the medical bots. While he knew that what he did wouldn't kill him, or leave any permanent damage, Izuku hoped that he didn't harm the other boy too badly. All Might looked over at the class. Alright class, I know that this was pretty distressing, but we still need to choose an MVP for the match dash. It's Midoriya. Izuku jumped, when he heard the voices of all his classmates say those two words at the same time. All Might's sweat dropped. Okay, and why is that? Like with the other matches, Yaoyorozu was quick at her observations. I'll start with the fact that despite going in solo, Midoriya won without much struggle. Judging by the fact that he didn't check the 1ST and the 2ND floors for the weapon's presence, but looked on the 3RD, he deduced that it was either on the 3RD floor, or the 4TH, as it turned out in the end. He was quick and efficient at defeating Bakugo, and easily slipped past Ida with his invisibility. I'd like to say that it's fairly obvious that Midoriya should be the MVP. Team D on the other hand, was utterly defeated. Bakugo was unwilling to cooperate with Ida, and quickly went AWOL. Ida did try his best, but in the current predicament, there was nothing he could do. He had little to none information on Midoriya's quirk, save for what we witnessed in the quirk apprehension test. All in all, it was a clean win for Midoriya. Izuku rubbed his neck sheepishly. Thank you, Yaoyorozu-san. You're really smart. Uraraka ran over to him. You were so cool, Midoriya-kun. I'm still happy you weren't hurt by the explosion though, and good job on that dodge, too. Izuku chuckled. For what it's worth, I could actually tank the explosion. That immediately turned heads, with everyone looking at him with a, "Are you stupid?" look. Izuku chuckled. Let me demonstrate, Ashido. Come here for a second, please. The girl shrugged and walked over. Sure thing, Midobi. What do you want me to do? Attack me with your acid. Please, just do it, I'll be fine. Thankfully, Mina trusted Izuku on that. When she threw some very corrosive acid on him, it simply didn't stick to Izuku, and didn't eat away at the armor. Izuku's Kailai armor's components shifted a little, and then everyone saw a blue sphere appear and disappear around Izuku. This was my shield you just saw. It's mostly invisible, but when I get attacked by something, my shield will take all of the damage they can. I can't withstand a full-powered punch from All Might, definitely not, but it's good enough for an explosion like the one that Bakugo did after the end of the exercise. They recharge pretty fast too. He looked around, to see that everyone had their jaws dropped, even All Might. Izuku chuckled nervously. I guess this was a bit too much, huh? The morning had been hectic, to say the least. The second Izuku got close to the UA, he was swarmed by a crowd of reporters, who kept asking about All Might's new role as a teacher in UA. Thankfully, Izuku was able to teleport, before they could swallow him fully. I have looked over the yesterday footage of your battle trials. Many of you did a very good job, but still, there is a lot that can be improved, given time and effort. There are still a few that I wish to address. Bakugo. The blonde boy perked up at their homeroom teacher, his face full of annoyance. Aizawa leveled a stern glare at him. You cannot just go off the handle like that. You are on a very thin ice. With the stunt you pulled, you could have killed Ida. You are lucky that Midoriya was there to save him, otherwise you'd be in HNDCFFS right now. And you, Midoriya. Izuku winced at the reminder. I understand, Aizawa-sensei. I shouldn't have lost my temper back then, and I'll make to prevent that from happening again. The man nodded at that. So long as you understand what you did wrong, even if it was the end of the exercise. Now, onto another matter, that could decide your future in UA. Everybody tensed up at that. You have to pick your class president. There was one collective thought in the class. That's so normal. Aizawa began getting into his sleeping bag. I don't care how you decide, I just want you to be done by the end of the lesson. Everyone in the class immediately began screaming to pick them, which Izuku sighed at. Thankfully, Ida provided a solution. Everyone, please calm down. I have a proposal. Now that the class's attention was on him, the blue-haired boy cleared his throat and continued. Let's put this to a vote. Whoever gets the most becomes the class president, and the one in the second place will be the vice president. Denki shrugged at that. Won't everyone just vote for themselves? We haven't even really got to know each other all that well. As Ida visibly deflated, Izuku decided that he too needed to say something to help the situation. Ida has the right idea. All we need is just a few rules, one of them being that no one gets to vote for themselves. For the second one, I propose a double vote. Basically, each and every one of us will 2 votes, one for a class president, and one for a vice president. And the last one is that some people may abstain from being selected. What do you all say? Everyone brightened up, shouting confirmations and agreement. I still cannot believe that they chose me, of all people. I don't think I really am qualified for it. Izuku sat with Uraraka, Ida, and Kirishima, who were eating their meals with gusto. He himself didn't require nourishment in form of food, since he gained all the energy he needed from the sun, but that didn't mean that he couldn't sit with them. Kirishima looked over at Izuku, and grinned. Oh come on man, I don't think that's all that surprising. You obviously care for our class, if the way you always hype, encourage, and help us is any indication. Ida butted into the conversation, his left hand, like always, doing the demonic chops. I must agree with Kirishima-kun. You strive to be a very good hero, Midoriya-kun, and always try to guide us too. Despite it being just a few weeks, I can say with confidence that you are the best pick, along with Yaoyorozu-san. It's why I voted for you too. Izuku felt very honored that people considered him to be like this. He received 9 votes to be the CP, and 4 to be CVP. Then there was Yaoyorozu, who received 5 CP votes, and 7 CVP votes. Izuku also understood what Ida was talking about. Over the time that he'd spent in the class, he'd helped others in the class with things they were struggling about, be it a certain subject that they couldn't understand, or some kind of insecurities. Izuku's still working on Kirishima's surprisingly low self-esteem. The boy was very encouraging and enthusiastic, it didn't feel right for him to think lowly of himself to Izuku. He also made sure to make Uraraka understand that wanting to be a hero to get money and help her parents is not selfish, and that no one will think of her poorly because of that. You can guess what those abbreviatures mean. Uraraka seemed very confused, for some reason. You did, Ida-kun? I thought you wanted to be the class president too, what with the glasses and all that, you know. If Izuku could, he would have sweat dropped. I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Kirishima, on the other hand, canon did sweat dropped. That's not how people choose class presidents, you know? Well, probably. The boy in question took off his glasses, and polished them a little, his gaze staying very stoic and serious. Wanting to do it, and being suitable for it are 2 different issues, Uraraka-san. I merely did what I assumed was correct, and will stand by it. Uraraka tilted her head at the boy. Say, Ida-kun, I've been thinking, you are very rich, aren't you? Izuku made a mental sigh. And there she goes again, Uraraka-chan sometimes is so blunt, just like Azui-san. Kirishima chuckled a little. Maybe you shouldn't call people out like that, Uraraka? Ida blanched. I've been trying to change my manner of speech, because I didn't wish to be called that. He then sighed. Yes. You see, my family has been heroes for generations. I'm the second son. Do you know the turbo hero, Ingenium? Izuku looked over the other boy quickly, now spotting the similarities. Yeah. He's a really popular hero, and has 65 sidekicks working at his agency in Tokyo. Are you two related? The similarities are uncanny. Ida smiled, pride written over all of his face. He's my older brother. He is a likable hero, who honors the rules and leads people. Ida's eyes were filled with admiration. I set my sights on being a hero, because I want to be like my brother. However, I still believe that it is too worldly for me to lead others. Midoriya, on the other hand, had shown remarkable sense for leadership and has a strong heroic mindset, as proven by his deeds during the entrance exam. Both Uraraka and Izuku looked at him in mild surprise, which didn't go unnoticed by the boy himself. Uraraka brightened up. This is the first time we've seen you smile, Ida-kun. Ida now himself was surprised. What, really? I thought I smile plenty. Izuku's eyes shone a bit brighter, his aura turning a bit warmer, and draping over the trio of his friends like a blanket. They definitely noticed, and looked over at Izuku, who was staring at Ida with a very steady and kind gaze. Ingenium to him is what All Might is to me. An idol, an example, and a stand-it. Ida fixed his glasses. Midoriya, is this coming from you? Izuku perked up at that, and the feeling disappeared. Oh yeah, sorry, that must have been uncomfortable. I sometimes lose control of this aspect of my quirk. All three of them looked at Izuku, waiting for him to elaborate. You see, many non-physical abilities that I use, they all cost me energy, that I call psionic. It's like mana in video games. Thankfully, my energy pool is pretty vast, and my regeneration is pretty good too. I've also learned to put as much effort into controlling it as possible, meaning that there isn't much excess energy when I use certain tricks. I'm trying to be as economical as possible, and get everything I can out of every drop of it. Also, all of you too have something akin to psionic energy. I'd say it's probably measured by how much you can use your quirks, with the same applying to anyone whose quirk requires something for its activation. I also can take that energy from others, but it's still a work in progress. Indeed, he'd kept up his training with Alarak, slowly getting used to the admittedly addicting feeling of Terrazine. Thankfully, Izuku wasn't pumped full of it, like Alarak is sometimes, so he also didn't have all that much trouble with the withdrawals. He looked over at his friends, to see their eyes wide as dinner plates. Uraraka was the first to snap out of her daze. That's so cool, Mido dash. Suddenly, the sound of an alarm permitted throughout the cafeteria, which also brought Kirishima and Ida back. An alarm? A feminine voice could be heard from the speakers. Attention! There has been a 3-level breach. Students, please evacuate to the outdoors promptly. Everything went to hell from then. Students pushed each other around, trying to get out of the building. Izuku wasn't spared from it either, but as he was pressed into the window, he noticed something else. It's those journalists from the morning. You must be kidding. Don't they know what a no is? He looked around to see that Uraraka, Ida, and Kirishima were about to get swallowed whole by the crowd, and his eyes, now glowing a very bright Nerism green, narrowed in determination. Izuku noticed the exit sign near the doors that he could hang onto, and teleported there. Then, Izuku turned Kailai, and let loose on his telepathy. Everyone, stop! The students, surprisingly, did as they were told, and now gave him his full attention. If you look outside, you will notice that it is simply the reporters from the morning. They have gotten onto the UA grounds. This is a false alarm. All of you are UA students, and you must act accordingly. Now, stop this disgraceful act. There is no doubt that certain students have gotten hurt because of the panic. Lead them to the infirmary, and return to your classes. A few students looked outside, and confirmed his words, which led to them listening to his orders, as they picked up the students that were injured. Some time later, the crowd finally dissolved, and Izuku was able to jump down. Uraraka, Kirishima, and Ida walked over to him. That was amazing, Midoriya-kun. Yeah, Midobro. That's what I was talking about. You are a natural-born leader, Midoriya-kun. I hope you understand it now. Izuku couldn't help but tear up a little. You three. Thanks, I'm happy I was able to help. The rest of the day sped by uneventfully. As Izuku was gathering his things and getting ready to go back to his house, and then the hideout, he noticed something curious. Most of the teachers, plus Nizu himself, stood nearby the gates, that had a sizable hole in them. Out of curiosity, he began walking there. Aizawa noticed him approaching, and raised an eyebrow. What are you doing here, Midoriya? Shouldn't you be back at home? Izuku rubbed his neck sheepishly, as all of the teachers now focused their attention on him. I'm sorry, Aizawa-sensei, I was just curious. Izuku walked over to the hole a bit closer, examining it, and then looked back at the teachers, his eyes filled with dread. This wasn't made by any of the reporters. The energy around the hole is too violent and evil. Nizu looked over at Izuku in surprise. What do you mean by that, Midoriya-kun? Izuku turned to the principal. My quirk's abilities use a type of energy I call psionic. Every living being has psionic energy, although it's very little, and doesn't give any kind of noticeable changes to its bearer, save for me of course. However, quirks emit a similar type of energy, which allows me to feel it too. My abilities allow me to trace energy back to its user. Sadly though, this was done several hours ago, and there are only a few remnants of it. This is all I can tell, but whoever did this, they definitely were a villain, a very dangerous one at that. Nizu looked down, and shook his head in sadness and worry. That is too bad. Thank you nonetheless, Midoriya-kun. Any kind of help is useful right now. Izuku tensed more. If it's of any help, then I assume that the villain tried to steal something. I can't say what exactly, but it's just a feeling I've got. Perhaps it's best you do a double check of anything noteworthy and important. The Chimera nodded. A good idea. We shall do so immediately. Now, it's best you get back home, you shouldn't worry your mother too much. Izuku chuckled a little. A very good idea. Ever since the day of the break-in, UA remained on high alert, upping the security, and taking steps in providing the students a safe environment. Izuku understood why they did that, he really have. But a couple of ectoplasm clones checking everything, from his student ID, to his suitcase's content, was just ridiculous. He never said anything though, simply taking his things, and walking inside the building. The lessons were as boring and uninformative as always, although it wasn't the teacher's fault, but rather Izuku's excessive dedication to his studies. Back in the time, he didn't get along well with his peers because he disliked their narrow-mindedness, and as a result, he spent most of his free time training or studying. At one point, a few of his classmates even tried to intimidate him, calling him a nerd and a health-obsessed freak, but Izuku simply scared them off, without resorting to violence. Thankfully, that was all in the past. Now he was the leader of his current class, aiding them, and becoming better himself as the result. Settle down, you problem children. At the voice of their homeroom teacher, Class 1A scrambled to their sits immediately. You're improving, good. Now, I've got news for you. Tomorrow at the morning, we all will head to the USJ. Denki raised his hand, but Aizawa just glared at him. Whoever says Universal Studios Japan will be writing essays for the next week. Kaminari immediately put it down. Aizawa sighed, and pinched the bridge of his nose. On the next day, very early in the morning, the whole Class 1A gathered on the UA's parking lot, right in front of a bus. Izuku walked up to the front, and turned to them. He, like everyone in the class, had his costume on. His bright golden eyes skimmed over their small group. Okay everyone, no pushing and no running. Enter the bus in an orderly fashion. A few minutes later, all of the students, plus Aizawa, were already riding in the bus. The man slowly put on his sleeping bag. We have about an hour until the arrival, so get comfortable, and don't cause a ruckus here. About 40 minutes into the ride, everyone animatedly chatted with each other about all kinds of things. Izuku simply watched, as he had no wish to interrupt anyone. Suddenly, he was addressed by one of the less known, at least to him, classmates, Tsuyu Azui. Midoriya-chan, may I ask a question? The boy in question looked over at the frog girl. Sure thing, Azui-san, if that is what you wish. Her face remained unreadable like always, but her aura radiated curiosity and a bit of annoyance. Please call me Tsu, you see, I always say what I have in mind. Your quirk is really curious to me, it's as if you have several ones mashed together into one. Izuku rubbed his neck sheepishly. Yeah, I get that a lot. I can assure that is not the case, however. A human's body is not suited to handle multiple quirks. Even Todoroki's half-hot half-cold is just a dual quirk, not two separate ones. In addition to that, all of my branches have one thing in common, their abilities use psionic energy. Yaoyorozu perked up in curiosity. Psionic energy? That sounds interesting. Would you care to elaborate? Izuku agreed, and explained how his quirk worked. I won't do the same thing for a third time. By the end of the explanation, everyone seemed to have been satisfied, although a new topic came out of it. Kirishima pointed his thumb at Bakugo and Todoroki. Well, other than Midobro, I'd say that Bakugo and Todoroki got the most flashy quirks in our class, unlike my hardening, which is pretty lame. They are going to make it big, one day. Izuku sighed. Do not say things like that, Kirishima-kun. Hardening is a very good quirk. It's not flashy, but it gives you amazing defensive and offensive capabilities. Kaminari joined the conversation too. Yeah, well, Bakugo's personality is garbage, and Todoroki is very bad at socializing. So yeah, unless they do something about it, they actually might have some trouble. Katsuki immediately glared at Denki. You wanna die, dunce face? Denki just turned away, not even bothered by the threat, as he pointed his thumb at his explosive classmate. See? That's what I'm talking about. Suddenly, the bus stopped. Every student inside looked over at their emerging classroom teacher. Okay everyone, we're here. Get out of the bus. Once everyone were outside, they were met with the sight of an enormous building that had a glass dome for a roof. All of the students marveled at the sight as they walked towards it. Uraraka's attention seemed to be caught by something else, as she looked very surprised, shocked even. Izuku followed her line of sight to see a pretty familiar figure, standing at the entrance. It was the space hero, 13. Ah, that makes a lot of sense. Uraraka-san wants to be a rescue hero after all, and 13 is one of the prime examples, and for a very good reason too. He leaned over to his friend. You are a fan, huh, Uraraka-san? The girl startled, and blushed, as she began fiddling with her fingers. Yeah, I am. 13 is my favorite hero, and always will be. She rescued so many people, you know? Izuku nodded his head in understanding. It is quite okay. She is one of the truly good heroes, at least in my opinion. Uraraka looked at him in surprise. Izuku made no secret about his opinion on the hero-villain society, so it was rare for him to praise someone like that. Finally, the whole group stopped right in front of the heroine, with the giant gates to this facility being right behind her. 13 seemed quite enthusiastic at their arrival. Hello everyone. My name is 13, and today, I will be your main instructor and guide for your rescue lesson here, in Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or shortly, USJ. Now, come on in. No sense in wasting time, Sure enough, the gates opened, and everyone followed 13 inside, where they were greeted by an amazing sight. As you can see, this facility has 6 different zones, each simulating a certain natural disaster: a shipwreck zone, a mountain zone, a landslide zone, a rain zone, a ruins zone and a fire zone. Today, each of you will participate in rescue training in one of these, but before we start, I have a few things to say. Everyone immediately turned their attention back to her at those words. I hope all of you know what my quirk, black hole, does. It allows to create mini black holes at the tips of my fingers, which is exactly why I rescued so many people, being able to get rid of the debris and save people. However, my quirk is a double-edged sword in such a situation, as one minuscule slip-up from me could lead to a civilian's death. What I'm trying to convey with my words is that all of your quirks are pretty powerful, but are also very dangerous, which means that you will have to learn restraint around civilians. Now, let's dash. Kirishima suddenly exclaimed something very worrying. Oh, wow, you even have fake villain. So manly. Izuku looked at the center of the plaza, and his eyes went wide. Aizawa was in the same plate, but he quickly regained his bearings. This is not a part of the exercise. Those are real villains. 13, get the students out of here. I'll deal with this. From the center plaza, voice of one of the villains could be heard. Where the heck is All Might? The schedule said that he would be here. Sure enough, every student rushed to the gates, while Aizawa jumped down, and began absolutely destroying the villains. Suddenly, they were blocked by black mist, which soon formed into a humanoid figure that wore a suit. My apologies, young heroes, but I can't allow you to escape. Allow me to introduce ourselves. I am Kurojairi, we are the League of Villain, and today, we had invaded this bastion of heroism, to kill the symbol of peace, All Might. I must ask where he is, though. Perhaps he will come out, if we kill a couple of you children. Suddenly, Bakugo and Kirishima lunged at the villain, attacking him with fist and explosion alike. Once the dust from the attack settled down, everyone noticed in shock that the villain didn't have even a sign of injury. Quite impressive, though you still have much to learn. Sadly, that will not come to fruition however, since I'm going to scatter you around this facility to your deaths. Suddenly, black mist enveloped the whole class. The next second he knew, Izuku was falling onto ground into a heavily raining zone. Once he landed, he quickly got up, and took a quick look of his surroundings. Hey guys, look, a hero brat. The boy looked at the source of the sound, to see a villain with black claws for palms. The man's voice attracted the attention of a dozen of another villains. All of them quickly surrounded the boy. Izuku sighed internally. When will I get a break? Ugh, no matter, I need to deal with these guys first. Izuku turned Nerism, and within seconds, was in his hero costume. A few villains flinched away at the frankly intimidating look. Izuku paid no mind however, as he quickly turned invisible. What the? Where did he go? Are you serious? Izuku gave an ominous chuckle. Aiur de Jacan. The next second, the villain, that found Izuku in the first place, slumped unconscious. The villains began panicking, as one by one, they were defeated. Finally, when one last villain remained, Izuku dropped his invisibility. Now, you will tell me everything you know. The man was shaking in fear, but he spat at Izuku nonetheless. I ain't telling you shit, you fucker. The boy chuckled. I don't require your consent. Izuku began searching through the man's memories. I see, so they do have a plan. This anti-symbol of peace seems very dangerous. I can already see several weak points of this abomination, though. With those thoughts, he knocked out the villain, and began looking for the exit. Soon enough, Izuku stumbled upon Tokoyami and Kuda, both easily fending off the villain that attacked them. After that, they continued searching together, and soon enough, found it. Once they did, they were met by a horrifying sight. The Nomu, as the abomination was called, had pinned Aizawa to the floor, and severely injured him. Izuku didn't hesitate for a second, as he brought out his double-bladed scythe. Tokoyami stopped him though. What are you doing, Midoriya-san? Surely you're not going to fight that villain. Izuku gently grasped Tokoyami's wrist. Don't worry, Tokoyami-kun. I will be fine, I have a plan. All I ask of you is that if the opportunity arises, get Aizawa-sensei out of here, and hurry back to the rest of the class, along with 13. Tokoyami seemed conflicted, but Kuda put a hand on the avian boy's shoulder, and gave Midoriya a shaky thumbs up, and a nod. Izuku's eyes reached out to both of them, momentarily caressing them in reassuring warmth. Izuku could easily feel the fear and nervousness radiating from Kuji and Fumikage. A few seconds later, Izuku once again turned invisible, and quietly made his way to the monster. This creature was bioengineered, which leads to the conclusion that it's not alive, which, in turn, means that I don't have to hold back. Soon enough, Izuku stood right behind the monster. With a quick slice of his scythe, its legs were severed, and with a screech of pain, the creature fell on its back. The hand villain from before looked very surprised. What the heck? Is this a stealth attack? With the Nomu's brain half a meter away, Izuku plunged his scythe right into it, and twisted, making the creature roar in pain, and then die. Izuku turned visible again. The villain now was enraged. How the hell did you kill the final boss, you FING cheater? I will kill you. With those words, the villain lunged at Izuku with surprising speed. Izuku was able to dodge just a second before the turquoise-haired villain could touch him. You are the leader of this whole group, are you not? Am I right to assume that you are one Tamura Shigaraki? You are quite fast, for someone who looks so frail. And your quirk too, you are capable of disintegrating anything and everything you touch with all 5 of your fingers. A quite fearsome ability. The villain stopped right in his tracks. How the hell do you know all this? Ain't no way one of those low-level NPC gave you info on our quest. Izuku chuckled, as his eyes turned a bright red, and he stood clad in his Taldaram armor. I don't require the consent of those people, whose memories I go through. Izuku could hear Shigaraki's teeth grind, as he began scratching his neck continuously. You goddamn cheater. Not only you have a stealth ability, but you also have telepathy. This is not fair. Just as he was about to attack, the mist villain from before had appeared. Tamura Shigaraki, it appears that we must retreat. With the Nomu destroyed, and the heroes being on their way, we will face inevitable loss, if we continue on. Shigaraki began scratching his neck with even bigger fervor. If you weren't our gateway out, Kurojairi, I would turn you to dust. As Kurojairi opened the portal, Shigaraki began walking into it, but not before sending one last hatred-filled look at Izuku. We will meet again, you DMN cheater. In the end, everything turned out alright, with the students having minimal injuries, and the only seriously hurt people were 13 and Aizawa. After a short interrogation of every student, Izuku included, the police drove every hero student back to their homes. As Tamura Shigaraki sat in the bar, he kept seething at how effortlessly he was destroyed. Even Sensei didn't anticipate such a quick loss, expecting for All Might to at least show up, but in the end, everything went entirely against the plan. As Tamura Shigaraki replayed the whole ordeal, he promised to himself, I will make that goddamn cheater suffer. Ever since the day of the attack, the news had been going haywire. On every channel, the reporters would talk about that one group of villain who had foolishly dared to attack UA students, of all people, with the goal to kill the symbol of peace, and got their buttes handed to them by said students. Thankfully, there was no severe injuries beyond the ones that 13 had sustained, and so after one day of break, Izuku and his classmates were back in school. Right now, they sat inside their classroom, like always, waiting for their homeroom teacher to arrive. Suddenly, the door opened, and Aizawa walked in. Izuku shook his head in slight amusement. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. The man stood in front of his class now, with a partially bandaged face, and with his left arm in a cast. All right class, I know it has been somewhat hectic as of late, but it's still too early to drop your guard. The fight's not over yet. After a small dramatic pause, Aizawa continued. You all have to prepare for the sports festival. Wait. Are you sure that's a good idea? We've been attacked by villains just a few days ago. Izuku looked over at Kaminari. Perhaps, but do not forget, is an annual international event that UA holds only once per a year. Ever since the integration of quirks in our daily lives, it has been the most popular sporting event. Every year, students of all grades and courses gather there to showcase their abilities. Kaminari perked up at that. Oh yeah, pros watch this event too, right? That's how they scout potential sidekicks. I guess you've got a point, dude, they couldn't just cancel it. Aizawa sighed. Thanks for explaining everything for me, you too. Now, let's begin our lesson. After the end of their lesson, everyone got up and began chatting about the sports festival. Uraraka seemed particularly fired up. Everyone. I'm gonna do my best. Before anyone could offer their support, she turned around to the rest of the class. I said I'm gonna do my best. Izuku gave a half-hearted yeah. Wow, she sure is determined. That's kinda cool, and adorable bad Izuku. After the final bell rang, everyone immediately packed up and prepared to leave for their houses. When Izuku opened the door though, he was met by a very weird, and perhaps a little unnerving, sight. Several dozens of students from every course have been crowding near the door, completely blocking off the entrance. Whoa, what's the deal here? Izuku felt Kirishima's question appear in his head too. Then, he heard a very familiar scoff, as he was shoulder-checked by Bakugo. Isn't it obvious? We've kicked the butts of those villains at USJ. These losers here are scouting their competition, and they better understand that they stand no chance. Now get out of my way, you extras. Izuku sighed. Speak for yourself, Bakugo. You shouldn't be so quick to underestimate others, although what else can be expected from you, of all people? Bakugo wanted to say something else, but was quickly interrupted. So this is the infamous Class 1A, huh? I must say that I am disappointed. Izuku looked back at the crowd, to see a lilac-haired boy with eye bags, that could rival Aizawa's, standing in the front. None of you look like much, and I bet you're all bark and no bite. Someone from the back of the crowd piped up. Yeah. Just because you beat up a few villains, doesn't make you any better than us. Izuku sighed. You do know that none of us asked to be attacked? Or perhaps, that we could have died? Are you trying to say that we are some glory hogs that like to be in the center of the attention, and watch how the ones we care about get hurt? We're lucky that 13-sensei was the only one to get severely injured. If not for our homeroom teacher's actions, one of my classmates would have died. Is that what you were trying to say, that we like to be famous, no matter if someone gets hurt or dies? Somewhere midway through his rant, Izuku slipped into his Taldaram form, his voice getting more and more booming and menacing, as red lightning danced around him, making everyone in the crowd, and even a few of his classmates, step back. Even the lilac-haired boy didn't look as bored, and was intimidated, and apologetic. The boy raised his hands in a peaceful manner. Sorry. I guess we didn't think about it from your point of view. Slowly, Izuku calmed down, while the boy continued speaking. The matter is, there are quite a few people who tried to get into the hero course, but failed, because their quirks didn't give them any combative advantages. It immediately clicked for Izuku. Of course. Not only it allows pro heroes to scout for potential interns, but it also gives a chance for someone from the general studies, or the support course, to transfer to the hero course, if they do well enough. The lilac boy smirked, and for a second, Izuku thought he was looking at their homeroom teacher. Precisely. So, be prepared, because your sit might get swept right from under you. Izuku chuckled, confusing the teen. What's so funny? Izuku wiped a few tears that appeared. I'm sorry, it's just that we already have one empty spot. Here, courtesy of our teacher expelling a pervert. So it's not the matter of if you will be able to outperform us to take one of our sits, but the matter of which one of you will outperform each other to gain the empty sit. Sorry, if you are disappointed. The lilac boy seemed to mull over that response, before finally sighing, and making way for Izuku and his classmates. Very well. Nonetheless, consider this a declaration of war on your class. We will give everything we have to defeat you in the sports festival, so you better bring you a game. Izuku nodded, as his eyes flashed in determination. Challenge accepted. We shall fight with everything we've got, when the day comes. The boy smirked again, but said nothing, as he walked off. The rest of the crowd quickly dispersed, a few of them still whispering insults about the class that had been in a villain attack. Izuku turned to his classmates. He could have sweat-dropped at the looks of awe. Somewhere in the back, Kirishima was crying crocodile tears. "DMN it, you're so manly, Midobro." Mina pumped her hand in the air. "Yeah, that's our class rep. You show them." Yaoyorozu gave him a thankful look. "Thank you for handling these people, and not allowing Bakugo-san to tarnish our reputation as a class, Midoriya-san." Izuku immediately became bashful, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. "It was nothing, you guys. Now come on, we need to go." For the next 2 weeks, everyone had pushed themselves to their limits, Izuku being amongst them. In this amount of time, he finally had learned how to use drain without terrazine consumption, which made him immensely happy. Of course, he also learned a few new skills, and polished the old ones. I'm giving him the Sentry's Force Field in Phase Smith, Psionic Storm and Psionic Orb in his Kailai and Taldaram forms. All of the abilities of every Protoss unit you can look up here, https, starcraft.fandom.com wiki war_council #characters. Right now, everyone from the class sat in their changing rooms. Suddenly, Todoroki walked over to Izuku, for some reason. "Midoriya, objectively speaking, you are stronger than me. However, I wish to challenge that position. I am going to defeat you." Izuku was very confused. "What has brought this on, Todoroki-kun? Your declaration is very sudden." Todoroki said nothing though, and just walked off. Izuku sighed in exasperation. It was already bad enough that their whole class was target of basically everyone in UA, but now this too. Is he serious? Does he know at least the most basic norms of a conversation? That was somewhat rude. Suddenly, Present Mick's voice made its way into their room. "Hey! Pay attention, audience. Swarm, mass media. This year's high school rodeo of adolescence that you all love, the UA Sports Festival, is about to begin, everybody. Are you ready? That's our K." With that, Class 1A left the locker rooms, ready for action. It's time for the students to enter the first-year stage. "Izuku, do your best." Inko's face was contorted in anticipation and worry. The Protoss trio seemed more interested, if anything. So this is the UA Sports Festival. I must admit, Terrans have a good judgment of what actual fun is. Vorazan scoffed at Alarak's words. Remember that for Izuku it is also his chance to shine, and catch the attention of a few good pro heroes. Alarak just rolled his eyes. Like we'd let him train with anyone, but us. Artanis nodded at that, hesitantly so. As much as it pains me to admit it, but Alarak is right. None of the pro heroes can teach Izuku a lot about his abilities. Only we can. But still, he can learn other skills from them. Don't diminish their abilities, Alarak, we have all seen what they can do. Alarak snorted, but said nothing, as he continued looking at the TV. The UA Sports Festival, the huge battle, where fledgling heroes sharpen their swords once a year. Anyway, these are the guys, right? The miraculous new stars who overcame enemy attacks with a heart of steel. It's Class 1A of the hero course. Izuku walked, and kept looking around in wonder, listening for the cheering that seemed to have only increased at the mention of their class. There are so many people. I guess it's not so surprising, considering the fact that this is an international event. Ida looked very serious, even more so than normally. I wonder, will we be able to give all these people our best performance? This is also part of the training required to become a hero. Izuku smiled at that. By smiling I mean with his eyes, 'cause I'm not about to write smiled with his eyes, too much of a mouthful. No need to worry, Ida-kun. I know that expectations can be very unnerving, but I think it'll be fine. There haven't been much airtime for them, but this class is also full of surprises. Hero Course, Class 1B. Izuku looked to his right, to see their sister class's members. He also recognized one of them, the gray-haired boy with weird eyes. Ah, he was the one who spoke up back then, if I remember right. Didn't get a good look at him. Next up, General Studies, Classes 1C, D, and E. Support Course Classes 1F, G, and H are here too. And, Business Course, Classes 1I, J and K. All of UA's first years are here now. Wow, not a lot of praise for them. I guess I understand now, why they were feeling the way they were, somewhat. As everyone neared the center, the word was given to midnight. Alright, sweethearts. Time for the player pledge. Immediately, Izuku could hear perverted, confused, and even outright disapproving comments about her being here. He clenched his fists. None of those idiots cared enough to dig deeper, preferring to shame her instead. BSTRDS. The R-rated hero didn't seem perturbed by any of them, though. Quiet, everyone. The one to represent the students will be the entrance exam's #1 participant, Midoriya Izuku, of Class 1A. What? Izuku's eyes went wide, as he automatically began walking towards the stage, internally panicking, as he tried to come up with something good. Finally, he stood in front of the microphone. Everything was quiet, uncomfortably so. Midnight gave him a sympathetic look. Just say something from your heart. Izuku made an internal sigh, and steeled himself. Good day, everyone. Today, all of us stand here, at the most prestigious and popular event in the whole world, the UA Sports Festival. Prior to this moment, my class, our sister class, the General Studies, the Support Course, and Business Course had been getting ready for this moment, our moment to shine as bright as the stars in the sky. Everyone here are ready to compete, and what I wish to say is, come with all you've got. Let's show why we're the students of the most prestigious Hero Academy of Japan. Let's go beyond our limits, just like our motto says. Plus dash. Every student that was in front of him, finished this pledge with him. Ultra. Izuku smiled, as everyone, even the General Studies, have began applauding, and cheering. Artani's eyes crinkled, very brightly so. That was an amazing speech, young Izuku. Good work. Inko was bawling her eyes out already. You're so amazing, Izuku. Alarak chuckled. That wasn't as sappy as I pictured it would be. I guess the kid is learning. Vorison sighed, as she elbowed him. Perhaps. It's much better than your non-existent speeches are, though. With that, he walked off the stage, giving it to Midnight. Now, after this most aspiring speech, let's get started. The first game is what we call a qualifier. Every year, many drink their tears here. Now, here is the first game. This year it's dash. A panel appeared, with a spinning sign on it, that suddenly stopped, showing the words, obstacle race. All 11 classes will participate in this race. The course will be the outer circumference of this stadium about 4 kilometers. Our school's selling point is freedom. Midnight's voice turned a bit darker, as she liked her lips. As long as you stay on the course, it doesn't matter what you do. Now, take your places, everyone. With those words, she pointed at a single tunnel to the right of the students. Everyone immediately headed there. Izuku quickly noticed a little something. This tunnel is too small for everyone to fit it, clever. This must be the first obstacle. Too bad I can fly. The first light disappeared. Izuku turned Taldaram, and floated off the ground. The second light disappeared. He prepared to launch himself. The third light disappeared. Start. Izuku flew above the whole crowd quickly, in a few seconds crossing it. Then, he dropped to the ground, turned Kailai, and dashed off. Present Mike once again made himself known. Are you ready for the commentary, Mummy Man? As did Aizawa. You're the one who forced me to come. Also, I'm not bandaged enough to be called Mummy. Present Mike didn't seem to care. Let's get started right away, Mummy Man. What should we pay attention to in early stages? The fact that one of the students has already crossed the tunnel, and the tunnel itself. What? Present Mike seemed to have finally noticed Izuku, already being about 200 meters away from the tunnel. As you can see, lady and gentlemen, it would seem that somehow, we already have someone with a giant advantage here. Isn't he from your class, Eraser? Yes, he is. Sadly for the rest of the contestants, he hadn't even displayed a half of his skill set, but had already shown himself to be quite strong. The reason he is so far away, is because he used his quirk to float over everyone in the tunnel, and then used one of his special moves to dash off. I see. Now would you look at that? Todoroki gets ahead of the competition, by brutally freezing everyone in their spots. Izuku then heard the sound of machinery working. Izuku barely dodged a swipe of a green metallic arm. He looked to his left, to see one of the robots from the entrance exam. What the hell? Izuku didn't waste any more time though, as he jumped and hit the robot with an axe kick, destroying it immediately. He looked forward, to see even more robots, and a wall of 0-pointers. How the F, does UA have so much money? And it would seem that Midoriya had reached the second obstacle of the race, the Robo Inferno. He doesn't seem to have much trouble with it, though. On the other hand, it would seem that Todoroki's move didn't deter his classmates all that much. Class 1A gets ahead of everyone? Izuku turned Taldaram, and gave a battle roar, as he charged towards the 0-pointers. Whoa, it would seem that Midoriya is a little bloodthirsty today, don't you think, Eraser? Izuku didn't listen, as he created a psionic storm, destroying 2 0-pointers in one swoop. Oh my god, Eraser, what the hell do you teach those kids? Midoriya Izuku just destroyed 2 0-pointers, like it was nothing. DMN, the kid's sure having fun out there. Good to see that he is putting our teachings to use. This time, neither Artanis nor Vorasan argued with Alarak's words, since they shared the sentiment. Inko, on the other hand, was shocked to her very core, and it showed on her face, with her mouth open wide, and her eyes being the size of dinner plates. Izuku turned back Kailai, and dashed off once again, keeping destroying the robots. Alright, that speed really is no joke, lads and lassies. Right now, Midoriya is ahead of everyone, but for how long will that be? After all, he's already got both Todoroki and Bakugo on his tail. Wait, what? Izuku spared a glance behind him, and sure enough, the two were just about 100 meters away. Don't underestimate me, you DMN Deku. Izuku narrowed his eyes, as he dashed off for a third time, this time sparing no time to the robots. It seems that Midoriya has decided to abandon caution, and went straight forward. A risky move. Perhaps, but it is one that will allow to stay him ahead of the competition. Izuku suddenly stopped, as his eyes went wide. Well then, it would seem that the first barricade was a piece of cake, judging by the fact that more than half of the contestants are already halfway through it. Meanwhile, Midoriya Izuku stands in front of the second barricade, the fall? If you fall, you're out, if you don't want to fall, then crawl. Where the hell does UA get money for all this stuff? Vorasan's eyes were wide. This looks like something that could be deadly. Are they out of their minds? Inko already had passed out. Artanis was still trying to wake her, to no avail. Izuku sighed in annoyance, as he turned Taldarim, and began jumping from platform to platform. Wow! That kid's got everything in his arsenal: strength, speed, power, and intelligence. How did you figure that out? Well, at least the fact that Nizu once slipped a special test for him, you know, the one? Ugh, of course. And I presume that Midoriya did well? Very well, actually. Nizu was very pleasantly surprised. Anyway, back to the current matter, it would seem that Midoriya had already almost crossed the second obstacle. But the rest aren't too far behind, especially Todoroki and Bakugo. Sure enough, the two of Izuku's strongest competitors are still chasing him, almost successfully so. The rest of 1A isn't too far behind, and neither is anyone else. Almost everyone had already began crossing the fall. Izuku also could hear feminine laughter, that almost bordered on maniacal. As he finally crossed the giant pit, he looked up to see a pink-haired girl in goggles, and some kind of equipment. She must be from the support course. I suppose it's only fair that they get to show off their inventions. Izuku shook his head. No matter, I still have to pass. Finally, it would seem that he had reached the final obstacle. Finally, we had reached the final obstacle. It's a minefield. It's set up so you can see where the mines are, if you look properly, so it's best you keep your eyes open, and legs careful. By the way, those landmines aren't strong enough to be dangerous. They do pack quite the concussive force, though. Izuku sighed, as he simply began floating. This is way too easy. Okay, seriously, why didn't we ever add something against the flyers? Because there haven't been any that had such speed and strength. The only contestant would be Hawks, but he didn't go to UA. Oh, I guess that makes sense. Anyway, Midoriya Izuku had already crossed half the minefield, and it would seem that, so far, he still is in the first place. How long can he maintain it, though? To the very end, Mike-sensei, to the very end. Especially if I do this. Izuku threw a projectile at one of the mines near both Bakugo and Todoroki, setting off a chain reaction of explosions, and pushing them away. Sadly, not too far. UFING Deku? That was a dirty move, Midoriya. Oh yeah, it would seem that Midoriya decided to make a few difficulties for his classmates. The competitiveness is strong here, huh? Izuku paid no attention, as he finally cleared the minefield, and for the fourth and final time, dashed off. He heard the telltale sound of explosions and ice, and redoubled his efforts. They were still quickly catching up. UA Sports Festival, first-year stage. Right now, the first person back in the stadium, he is Dash. As Izuku, Todoroki and Bakugo entered the tunnel, Izuku could hear his heartbeat. Finally, he saw light, and ran inside the stadium. Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya Izuku wins. And right after him, in second place, it's Todoroki Shoto. And in third, Bakugo Katsuki. Izuku felt himself tear up. I won. Hell yeah. The kid has destroyed them, utterly. Shut up. Calm down, Vorasan, Alarak. I'm sure we all are happy that young Izuku had won. Inko was already going through the second box of tissues. The second round of the UA Sports Festival first-year stage is Dash. Every student watched in anticipation as the roulette finally stopped. A tower defense competition. In this round, the 40 students that were the first ones to finish the race will form 10 teams of 4, and take their positions inside the towers, kindly provided by my colleague Cementos here, and within the span of 30 minutes, will protect their towers from the waves of robots that will come to attack them. The teams are allowed to attack each other, but be careful, for you might bite off more than you can chew. The winners will be decided by the amount of damage done to their castle. The 4 teams that have defended their castles better than everyone else will proceed to the third and final round. Students, you have 5 minutes to form teams. Before Izuku could even move, a cheery voice, that he knew all too well, sounded right beside him. Midoriya-kun, let's team up. Izuku turned around, and his eyes softened when he saw Uraraka. I'd be happy to have you join, Uraraka. Come on, we should find another for our team. In the end, it'll be the same team as in canon. Except for Hatsum being swapped for Shoji. The tower wasn't really big, resembling those medieval ones, which worked for Izuku. Izuku took out his tablet, and began looking through the structures, until he found the one he wanted. Mini Photon Cannon. This is a weaker version of the original Photon Cannon. Its defensive capabilities are limited, but the cost is reduced too. Cost, 75 minerals. Mini Shield Generators. These small drones can create a shield on anything they make contact with. Cost, 25 minerals per 3. Of course, prior to that, Izuku summoned a pylon. Whoa! What is Midoriya doing? He seems to have created some kind of crystal out of thin air. Oh, and look, there's something else. This is Midoriya's quirk at work. In his Phase-Smith form, as he calls it, he can conjure different structures. There is no specification as to what structures, but I imagine it's part of it. This hasn't been a very long existing ability, considering the fact that this was added to his quirk registry just about a year ago. Finally, the 4 mini-photon cannons that Izuku placed on the 4 angles of the tower has appeared. The drones also finally appeared, and latched onto the tower, covering it with the classic Protoss shield. Basically like a second layer. Tokoyami looked around in surprise. This is unexpected. It would seem that we have much bigger chances of being the winners. Shoji, due to his mask, didn't seem very affected by the sight of things appearing out of thin air. These weapons look pretty strong. Can they destroy the pointers? Izuku nodded. Yeah, I am fairly sure that they would take down either of them easily. Uraraka looked at the cannons in wonder. We will definitely win this, thanks to you, Midoriya. Izuku sighed. Don't relax, Uraraka. These little guys can only help so much, they are not very fast. The heavy lifting is still on us. Say, how many robots can you lift up now? Uraraka seemed to think about it for a few seconds. Well, thanks to your insistence on me training my body, I'd say about 5 at once? It's almost twice as much than what I had during the entrance exam. Izuku nodded. Good. That should do. Tokoyami, for how long can Dark Shadow fight right now? Dark Shadow immediately made his appearance. Well, if I'm careful enough, I should be able to go on for about 15 minutes non-stop, but that depends on how much robots we will be facing. Izuku pondered on the last bit. Well, obviously, they won't bring the 0-pointers here, too unbalanced. Now, I may have a theory on how this will work. Up until 9 minutes, we will only face the 1-pointers, at 10, the 2-pointers will be added, at 15, the 3-pointers. At 20 minutes, the 1-pointers will stop appearing, at 25, the 2-pointers. By the time there are only a few minutes left, I'd say we'll mostly be attacked by 3-pointers, with the remnants on of 1 and 2-pointers. This is how it should work mathematically, but knowing UA, it could be something else. He looked over at Shoji. Shoji, your part here is vital. While the cannons have good detectors, they can't see or hear like you do. You will relay any information, while also guarding this pylon. Without it, none of my creations will work. Shoji nodded. Very well. I must ask you a question though. What is your part in this plan is? Izuku rubbed his neck bashfully. I'll be our heavy hitter. These robots are a piece of cake, especially since I grew even stronger since the entrance exam, both physically and ability-wise. Tokoyami walked over to the ledge of their tower. This is a solid plan, Midoriya. Revelry in the dark. Suddenly, Midnight's voice sounded all over the stadium. All right teams, your 5 minutes are up. Right now, we will unleash the robots. Do your best. With that, the arena began getting filled with robots. Izuku looked over at the entrance of their tower. Thankfully, he was able to seal it off completely. Then, he noticed an approaching group of robots that were conveniently huddling close to each other. Izuku immediately turned Nerism and attacked the robots with Shadow Fury, dismantling them in mere seconds. And the first blood goes to Izuku Midoriya. But, his teammates are not sitting idle either, as are the other teams. Team Todoroki has began fending off robots, quite successfully at that, as does Team Bakugo. Let's see how this will continue, folks. And surprisingly, Izuku indeed had been correct when he proposed how things would go. The robots appeared in that exact order, which allowed the teams to save their strength. So far, no one attempted to. Deku. Izuku sighed. Just my luck. Izuku looked over to see Bakugo flying with his explosions, making way towards their tower. The cannons were too preoccupied with the robots to attack the blonde. Thankfully, Shoji was quick to react, and was able to punch Bakugo right in his gut, before he could attack the pylon. It still left Izuku with questions. How the hell did he know that the pylon is the source of energy? Have to give it to this Bakugo kid, he's got a good head on his shoulders. Vorison smacked Alarak's head. Who are cheering for, Izuku or the dandelion head? Alarak shrugged. I'm not cheering for anyone, I'm just here to watch Terran teenagers beat each other up, that's all. Okay, well, that, and seeing our brat wipe the floor with them, as Terrans say. Surprisingly, for such inferior species, they are really good at playing with words. Artani sighed. I guess this is as close as we can get. He looked over at Inko, who was going through the 4th box of tissues already. In the name of Kala, how much can this woman even cry? She should have died from dehydration already, with how much tears she had spilt. 15 minutes left, everybody. Finally, we can bring out the heavy lifters. So far, everything had been going according to the plan. Surprisingly, Bakugo was the only one to attack their tower, very much unsuccessfully, at that. The tower haven't suffered much damage, thanks to the shield generators, and effective scouting from Shoji, save for a few scuffs and cracks. Izuku knew it wasn't going to last though. And just as Present Mike said, the 3-pointer robots began appearing in the midst of the 1- and 2-pointers. Now these could be dangerous, if Izuku let even one through, especially considering the fact that both Tokoyami and Uraraka were reaching their limits, and wouldn't be able to go on anymore. So, Izuku decided to try an ultimative move. He first turned into Taldaram form, then grabbed the closest robots with his telekinesis, and then unleashed something he had been learning for the past few weeks. Psionic Storm. Immediately, the robots were engulfed in psionic lightning, and began receiving damage, breaking one by one. Whoa! Would you look at that, Midoriya had just unleashed some kind of special move. And with just one sweep, he destroyed about a dozen of robots. So far, this team had been faring with little to no damage, but it seems that the situation may change, because Uraraka and Tokoyami had left the battlefield for the tower, courtesy of their leader. Let's see how this will turn out now, folks. Izuku growled at the blatant reveal of information. Can't he keep his god-mad mouth shut? Izuku could almost feel the change in the atmosphere. The boy chuckled, and broadcasted his words to every student in the arena. So, it would seem that everyone here now want a piece of me and MY Tower. Well, go on, try it, you cowards, I won't spare you. When everyone, save for Bakugo, for obvious reasons, and a few other, either brave or stupid, students, had immediately dropped any plans they had on attacking their team, Izuku chuckled. They really are cowards, aren't they? Although, I guess it makes sense that they would try to steer clear of me, I am simply too strong for them. Now, on to destroying even more robots. Izuku then felt a familiar aura approaching. Ah, you never learn, do you, Kaken? The boy growled. Stay the F out of my head, UFING Deku. I'll blast your shitty tower to smithereens. Izuku narrowed his eyes, and sent a concussive blast of psionic energy at the blonde. After all, he had learned his lesson from the battle trials. Bakugo dodged the projectile, and grinned. You've got shitty aim, Deku. Izuku tilted his head mockingly, all while blasting a few robots that were trying to get closer to the tower. Do I? What the F, do you ACK? Suddenly, the sphere smacked Bakugo right from above, exploding, and sending the blonde rocketing towards the ground. Upon impact, he felt air leave his lungs, as he struggled to get up, his vision blurring. 10 minutes left, folks. And it would seem that Bakugo's still trying to stand against Midoriya, and is doing a very poor job of it. Bakugo then got ensnared by Siro's tape, and dragged back to his team's tower by the boy, who was grumbling under his breath. Huh. These humans are so weak. Even Vorison could handle that blast. The woman slowly turned to Alarak, her green eyes glistening with murder. What are you implying, Alarak? The Taldaram High Lord, as if oblivious to the term woman's anger, snorted. You have heard me. I said that you are very easily defeated, and the kid at this point could take you on in a battle, and go toe-to-toe with you. Vorison's left eye twitched, as she activated her scythe, and, with a battle roar, jumped at Alarak. Back in the arena, Izuku was destroying the robots left and right, without breaking a sweat. Would you look at that, ladies and gentlemen, Midoriya is absolutely demolishing the robots, as if it's no one's business. Where did all that power come from? Obviously, Midoriya wasn't going all out to preserve his strength and allow his teammates to show off their skills. Now that they are recovering inside the tower, while simultaneously guarding it, he can and does go all out to secure their victory. A clever and rational strategy. A bit too on the nose, Aizawa-sensei. Oh, I see, thanks, mummy man. And on that note, only 5 minutes left. Participants, it's best you go beyond. If Izuku could, he would have grinned at those words. I guess I can have a bit of fun too, now. Izuku leapt into the air, and then fell back down, his landing destroying the nearby robots, and sending the rest flying. Now, let's see if I can outdo you, Alarak-sensei. He looked over at another crowd of robots that were heading his way. Izuku then concentrated as much psi-energy as he could, and then sent it out in a destructive wave that annihilated the robots in its range immediately. What the heck? Eraser, what the hell did you teach this kid? I didn't teach him anything. His quirk is too complex and unknown to me to give any solid advice, as much as I loathe to admit it. So, outside of his academic prowess, which you had seen with your own eyes, Mike, I have no hand in his development. Hey, that's my move. Surprisingly, Alarak didn't sound offended. It was quite the opposite, actually. Thankfully, after a few minutes of chasing, Vorison had calmed down, thanks to Inko, who, despite her current predicament, was able to stop the duo from squabbling like little children. Vorison sighed. There will be no living with him now. And that's it, folks. The time's up. Now, let's see the results. In the first place we have Team Midoriya, with little to no damage, all thanks to their hard work. In second place we have Team Todoroki, with the total of 3 breaches. In third, it's Team Bakugo, with 7 breaches, and, finally, in the fourth, we've got Team Shinso, with 13 breaches. With that, we proceed to the final round, the tournament. Izuku settled back into his Phase-Smith form, and deconstructed all of his creations, then looked over at the billboard with the pairings. Izuku Midoriya vs Hitoshi Shinso. Shoto Todoroki vs Hantashiro. Ibara Shiozaki vs Denki Kaminari. Tenya Ida vs Mei Hatsum. Mina Ashido vs Shoji Mizo. Fumikage Tokoyami vs Momo Yayorozu. Eijiro Kirishima vs Tetsu. Ochako Uraraka vs Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku's hands twitched in worry at the last pairing. Katsuki wasn't known to show mercy or hold back against anyone, no matter their age, gender, and overall strength. Who the F is Uraraka? Izuku sighed at his former friend's words. Wow, he couldn't be even bothered to remember any of their names. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. He then looked over at the retreating Wajiro and the silver-haired boy from Class 1B. His eyes softened. I can't fault them for their decision, after all, that's most likely what I would do too. Izuku looked over at his future opponent, who was staring at him this whole time. Hitoshi Shinso. The boy who declared war on his class. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Come to think of it, they both said that they don't remember most of the round. Does this guy have some kind of brainwashing quirk? Izuku nodded at the boy in acknowledgement, and walked off, missing the look of surprise on the lilac boy's face, that quickly schooled into one of determination. After about half an hour of waiting and watching his classmates participating in those recreational activities, along with the rest of UA students, the arena for the battle was finally ready, courtesy of Cementos. Hey guys, are you ready? A lot has happened, but finally, here we are, at the final round of the first-year stage UA Sports Festival. Here, you can only depend on yourself. Even if you're not a hero, you'll find yourself in such situations quite often. Heart, skill, body, wisdom, and knowledge, the participants will have to use all those to win. Now, let our participants come out in the arena. Izuku took a deep breath, and walked out of the tunnel, straight towards the battle area. First we have, the one who absolutely dominated this festival so far, Izuku Midoriya, of Hero Course, Class 1A. He now stood at the arena, looking at Shinso right in the eye. And his opponent is someone who is yet to show us the true extent of his abilities. His name is Hitoshi Shinso of the General Studies, Class 1C. Now, the rules are simple: force your opponent out of bounds, or immobilize them. You can also win by making your opponent say, I give up. Bring on everything you've got, after all, we have Recovery Girl on our side. Put your morals and ethics aside for now, because you're here to win. Although, anything life-threatening is obviously forbidden, because heroes don't kill. I'll stop the match if things get out of hand. Izuku looked over at Cementos, then back at his opponent. Now, to begin our first battle. Ready? Start. Izuku shifted into a battle stance. Like this, Izuku's both defensive and offensive capabilities were equal to each other, suiting his physical parameters. Shinso scowled. What, not even going to use your quirk? Am I that weak to you? Izuku shook his head. That is not it at all, Hitoshi Shinso. And don't try to get into my head, I was trained against such tricks. What I want right now is see your skill. You declared war on my class, so how about you match up your words with your actions? Show me your fighting spirit, just how much you wish to become a part of our class. As the class president, it is my duty to see if you fit. Flashback. Izuku sat in a position of meditation, while Alarak circled him. Your mind is your sharpest weapon, however, it can just as easily be used against you. You have to learn how to protect it. Right now, getting into your head is child's play, and I'll ensure that by the end of these 10 months, it'll be the opposite. End of flashback. Shinso's eyes narrowed, as he dropped into a battle stance. It was pretty sloppy, and full of openings, but much better than that of a beginner. He didn't expect to have to fight right off the bat, so he haven't prepared himself accordingly. Shinso's got potential, especially under the tutelage of someone like Eraserhead, but there's still a lot left to be desired. Although, his quirk makes up for it, it's perfect for an underground pro hero. Izuku made a come-at-me motion with his hands, and his opponent complied, rushing at him with reckless abandon. As soon as he was in the range, Shinso threw a punch, which Izuku effortlessly blocked. His body is untrained, which can be fixed with time and exercise, and he has a semblance of technique, but that's it. It would seem that our two combatants decided to start with a show of martial arts. So far though, Midoriya has been effortlessly blocking every of Shinso's blows. To me, it seems like Midoriya is testing Shinso. Normally, I would be against such an irrational thing in battle, but due to the fact that Class 1A is not full, anyone from the other courses could secure the spot for themselves. Or at least could have, but right now, we only have Shinso on our hands, who, frankly, is probably the best choice here. But Midoriya is also his class's president, so of course he would wish to test Shinso's skills. Once again, a bit too on the nose, Aizawa-sensei. Izuku sighed, as he noticed that Shinso was getting more and more sloppy. He's getting tired. I've seen enough, let's end this. Shinso only had 1 second, before Izuku swiftly deflected another one of his punches, and roundhouse kicked him right in the gut. The boy went skidding along the ground, coughing because of the sudden blow. He then shakily began standing up. DMN it, this is not fair. Thanks to my quirk, I have always been behind everyone else, I was called a villain, and laughed at for my dreams. Someone like you, who had been blessed from the start, could never understand? Izuku's eyes softened, as he began walking towards Shinso. Perhaps not. However, you want to be a hero, right? If so, then you should know that the world in itself is unfair, as a whole. And we, as heroes, will have to combat that unfairness, and protect people. Tell me, why do you wish to be a hero? The boy's face turned bitter. You can't help what your heart yearns for. Izuku nodded. That is true. But why does your heart yearn for you to be a hero? Is it because you wish to help people? Because you want to become famous or rich? What is your reasoning? Shinso looked down and thought. I don't know. Suddenly, Izuku was right beside him. Then figure it out. There is no one who knows your own soul better than you do. I'll be waiting for you. With those words, Izuku neck-chopped Shinso's, knocking him unconscious. Midnight swung her whip. Hitoshi Shinso is unable to fight anymore. Izuku Midoriya wins. The stadium was filled with cheering, but Izuku paid them no attention, as he laid the boy down on the stretcher, and had the medbots cart him away. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The first match of these brackets is done. Soon enough, we'll have our second match, so remain watchful. Meh, the brat was weak. Of course our kid easily took him out. Vorison slapped the back of Alarak's head. You shut up, and stop insulting those kids. Inko and Artanis shook their heads, one in exasperation, another in amusement. Hantashiro has been immobilized. Shoto Todoroki wins. Izuku's eyes creased in frustration, as he looked at the giant iceberg, created by Todoroki. Why won't he use both sides of his power? No, this cannot continue. After Todoroki walked back inside the stadium, Izuku caught him. Todoroki, we need to talk. Do you understand me now, Midoriya? No. Todoroki's eyes went wide, and then a spark of anger appeared. Todoroki, what you went through is undeniably horrid. However, by doing this, you're doing exactly what you are saying you are trying to avoid. You're allowing your father control your actions. Plus, you could never be the best, using only half of your power, like everyone else are doing. Todoroki scoffed. Big talk for someone who has been doing nothing but fooling around himself. Izuku sighed. I know you're not a fool, Todoroki, so you must understand what I was doing in my fight against Shinso. Todoroki scowled, but said nothing, as he walked off. Izuku shook his head, and sighed. Didn't take you for a stalker, Katsuki. And lo and behold, the boy in question walked out from around the corner. How did you know I was here, Deku? Izuku rolled his eyes. You know perfectly well, how? With those words Izuku walked off, not intending on listening the blonde's words. Izuku finally found Momo, who sat in the waiting room, looking like she was on the verge of tears. His eyes softened, as he walked up to her, and put a hand on her shoulder. It's okay, Yaoyorozu. You did what you could. She looked over at him, with tears appearing. But I didn't do anything. I just stood there, allowing myself to be pushed out of bounds. Izuku sighed. That's your problem, Yaoyorozu. You take too much time to think, and you're way too self-conscious. Don't be so hard on yourself. There are still 2 more years ahead anyway, no need to rush. Izuku winced, as Bakugo sent a blast at Uraraka. Well, guess I was right. Still looks awful. Everyone in the class were worse, though, looking in different degrees of horror. I guess even if it's a girl, you won't hold back, huh, Bakugo? Izuku looked over at Tsuyu, and nodded. Yeah, to Katsuki, age and gender are not relevant. He won't hold back just because his opponent is younger, or is a girl. Kaminari shook his head. DMN, that's rough. Inko looked away, tears appearing in her eyes. Oh Katsuki, why are you doing this? Artanis put a hand on her shoulder. Don't worry Ms. Midoriya, I am sure that the girl will be fine. Inko looked over at him, and nodded slowly. A strange feeling was swelling in Izuku's chest, as he watched Uraraka get blasted by Bakugo repeatedly. Izuku immediately then understood what he was feeling, anger. Surprisingly, he wasn't horrified, or surprised by this sight, but infuriated. Uraraka keeps her relentless assault, but there is no progress to see yet. The stadium began filling with murmuring. Suddenly, some hero in the crowd made themselves known. Hey! How can you say that you want to be a hero like that? If there's such a big difference of abilities between you, then just send the poor girl out of bounds. Stop playing with her. The sound of booing filled the stadium then. There's booing from the crowd. And honestly Iagrack? The elbow, what are you doing? Izuku SCKED in an angry breath. How dare they? Who has caused this uproar? Was it a pro? Izuku perked up at Aizawa's voice. How many years have you been a pro for? The stadium immediately went silent. If you're saying this with a straight face, then you might as well hang up your cape, and look for another profession. Izuku's body sagged in relief. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei. What you are calling playing around is Bakugo being careful, because he knows the strength of his opponent, who had made it this far. He can't go easy on her, or let his guard down, because he's trying to win. Izuku's eyes crinkled with mischief then. He's right, you know? All of his classmates looked over at him in surprise, but Izuku just pointed upwards, making everyone's gazes follow, and making them even more surprised. There, in the air, was a myriad of debris that Bakugo himself had created. Izuku then heard a, "I'm gonna win," from Uraraka, and then all of the stones began falling right at Bakugo. A meteor shower? Now you notice. She then lunged at Bakugo. Then, to the surprise and horror of everyone, Bakugo let out an enormous explosion that destroyed Uraraka's secret move in one hit, and sent her skidding on the ground. Bakugo lets out a monstrous explosion, and blasts right through Uraraka's secret plan. Izuku clenched his fists. Katsuki, you've become so strong. Then, his eyes went wide, as Uraraka shakily began standing up. Bakugo immediately lunged, screaming something at her. Uraraka was about to respond in kind, but the next second, she fell on the ground, still trying to get up. Bakugo stopped, as he watched in surprise. Izuku closed his eyes for a second. DMN. She pushed herself beyond her limits, and still lost. But still, you were amazing, Uraraka. Uraraka's down. Izuku noticed that Uraraka began crawling towards Bakugo, but then stopped, finally losing consciousness. Midnight walked over, and stopped Bakugo, who already was back in his battle stance. Uraraka is out of commission. Katsuki Bakugo wins. Izuku walked off to cool down. Inko walked off to have a glass of water. Meanwhile the Protoss trio were mulling over what they just saw. Artani sighed. Time and time I was proved just how tenacious Terrans can be, but even I never saw anything like this before. Vorison put a hand on his shoulder. We always learn something, Aiur looked away. I guess she is somewhat strong. Both Artanis and Vorisan looked at him, as if he grew a second hand. As he walked the corridors of the stadium, he came face to face with his former childhood friend. Deku. Izuku looked him in the eyes. Bakugo. Izuku began walking off. That desperate plan. Izuku stopped in his tracks, and looked over at Bakugo. It was your idea, wasn't it? He clenched his fists. No. Everything that happened just now, all of it was Uraraka. I never helped her create this plan, so if you were pushed into a corner, then it's all because of Ochako, not me. Izuku stood in front of Uraraka's waiting room. As he walked in, they were met with the strangest sight they ever seen. Man, I've lost. I was so carried away, and thought I could defeat him, but DMN it. Izuku walked up to her with a sigh. He then hugged her, and she gasped in surprise. Then, a few seconds later, she teared up, and began sobbing. After a few minutes or so, she finally calmed down. Izuku led her out of the hug, and looked in the eyes. Don't try to hide your emotions from Uraraka. I know immediately when someone is upset, happy, angry, or anything else. Uraraka blushed. Sorry, Midoriya. Izuku sighed. Don't apologize for something that is not your fault. You are being too hard on yourself. The girl just looked away. It's just that I want to become a hero as soon as possible, so I could help my parents, you know? Izuku sighed again. I do, you told me so. That's why I am saying this, don't be hard on yourself, you gave it your fullest, and went beyond your limits, way beyond. No one can ask more of you. He put a hand on her shoulder. I'll go and prepare for my battle with Todoroki. Cheer for me, please. With that Izuku left the room.
Okay, sadly the chapter is over, and if you enjoyed the video just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.